Singapore, one of the most advanced cities in the world, hailed by many as the city of the future. Now, this economic powerhouse hosts the chess of the future, Freestyle Chess. In this game, everything is decided at the board, face-to-face with your opponent. Goodbye to home preparation, chess databases, and reams of engine analysis. This is chess in its purest form. On one side, the absolute greatest player of his generation, Magnus Carlsen, who is hungry to conquer yet another chess domain. On the other, his greatest challenger, Fabiano Caruana. No one ever came closer to knocking Carlsen off his world championship perch. From the very first move, they will both have to adapt to new patterns and unfamiliar, unforgiving terrain. Freestyle is the future of chess. Come and join us on this unpredictable journey.
We bring you live action from the iconic city of Singapore, where two best players on the planet are here for chess like you've never seen before. It's sweeping views of the lovely city, and we're going to be swept away by some incredible freestyle chess action that's just about to begin. I'm your host, International Master Tanya Sachdev. Alongside me, the one and only, my good friend, Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. Maurice, how pumped are you for this?
This is super exciting. Freestyle chess, just like we have seen before, but now reinvented up to a new level. And to have these players playing, I mean, what else would you want in a place like Singapore?
And that's world number one, Magnus Carlsen, world number two, Fabiano Caruana. And I want to say they're in the building, but Maurice, we're not in a building.
No, we're in a yacht. I have done a lot of commentary. I've been around chess for decades now. I can say safely, I've never done commentary in a location like this one. A yacht, just sitting in the marina somewhere in Singapore. It's as good as it gets. Yeah. It's as crazy as it gets.
I don't know what you're talking about, just a regular day in the office for me. But this is going to be super duper fun. We're actually on a boat and the players are in the yacht with us right now. Now, freestyle chess, it's original, it's fresh, it's absolutely raw. It's chess that you've never seen before. 960 positions. One of them randomly picked up minutes before we start the action. And what sets this apart from the other 960 action that we've seen before is that it's all played out in a classical time control.
It's incredible. As a chess player, one of the things that we do is prepare deeply. What is my opponent? What is he like? What kind of variations am I going to try to spring on them? Is there a novelty that I can play? Well, forget about all that, because you see a completely new position. Well, the odds are you've never seen it before. Even if you played freestyle, there are 960 to choose from. You may not even remember that you've seen this position before a year ago. And the players have to look at it, figure out some of the nuances, some of the traps. Maybe there's a hanging pawn somewhere. Maybe there's a smothered mate somewhere. You don't even know what might pop up, and they have to be ready, and they don't have any time to do it. So it really shows who's the more original player, who's the more creative, who's the more flexible, who can freestyle the best.
It's freedom of mind. We're on a boat. We're going to be seeing chess, which feels like swimming in the deep end of the ocean. It's going to be a lot of fun. And just a few moments ago, Maurice, we did draw the first position. Now, Magnus and Fabi will be playing a best of two against each other in a classical time control. And they will have two different positions for both these games. And here is our first position for round one. We're about to lift off game one between world number one Magnus Carlsen and world number two Fabiano Caruana. This is chess reimagined. This is freestyle chess, and here with me is the official position drawing machine of freestyle chess, and also one half of the mastermind behind the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour. Holly, you're here. It's time to reveal our first position. Should we do this?
Let's do this. Okay.
And you're going to pull out one of these 960 balls.
It is position 87.
That's position 87 for game one. Let's go.
The freestyle chess match between Carlsen and Caruana sees these two stars going head-to-head in two classical games of freestyle chess, also known as Chess 960 or Fischer Random. Both games will be played at a time control of 60 minutes with a 30-second increment. From the 960 possible starting positions, 2 will be randomly selected for the competitors, 1 for each game. If the score is tied after both games, the match will go to 2 rapid tiebreak games. 2 fresh positions will be played with a time control of 10 minutes with a 10-second increment. If the match is still tied, we will see the most exciting format in chess, Armageddon. White will get more time on the clock, but must win, as Black will win the match in the event of a draw. White will start with 5 minutes, while each player will submit a bid with the amount of time they are willing to play with to get Black and draw odds.
We're having some technical issues, but we're sorting that out, and we'll bring you all the live action from the players. We've got a little door in front of us, Danny, and right behind that is where all the action's happening. What do you think is going on in Magnus's and Fabi's mind right now? They know it's position number 87.
You know, those two are two of the coolest customers in all of chess. You may see a lot of players who get flustered. They show their emotions when they're playing. Those two, they're calm, especially Magnus, of course. He's Joe cool. And Fabi is another one. You'll see him come under pressure from time to time, but they're so analytic. They're so composed. They're the types who, whatever the situation, they're just going to manage. And even though they're playing on a yacht, it's an unusual situation, they're going to be able to handle this. It's all about the chess in the end. You could turn them upside down, like drag them out of bed, turn them upside down on their heads, and they're still going to be thinking, okay, do I play D4 or do I play E4 or do I play C4?
Or perhaps something completely random, because let's not forget, this is Chess 960. This is freestyle chess. And Magnus said it himself that he cannot imagine a more formidable opponent than Fabiano Caruana. The two of them have such incredible history between them. They've played a world championship match where we had all classical games end in a draw. It had to be decided in tiebreak. They're world number 1, world number 2. And also recently, both Magnus and Fabi have been having a really great run when it comes to freestyle chess.
Well, freestyle, but also just the way they're playing.
Yes.
I mean, Magnus, does he ever lose? He's like winning everything in sight. He also is somebody who, whatever he plays, he wants to win. And let's also add to that, that Fabi has been playing fantastically well. He just come off winning his 3rd U.S. championship in a row, and he just won the Chess 9LX event in St. Louis, where I was doing commentary. And I got to say, there were a couple of positions where he had trouble, but mainly this guy was a monster. Even if he was in trouble, he would just get out of trouble against anyone he played. He was ahead on the clock. But this beast he's got to play right now is a little bit different. He didn't have to play anybody like one Magnus Carlsen.
That's true. Magnus feels like he's just unstoppable regardless of the format, regardless of the opponent he's playing against. Fabi, he also won the Chess 9LX in 22, so he's a big one to fight when it comes to freestyle chess. We got those images, those visuals coming in just a couple of seconds ago where we had, I think Magnus, he was setting up the board with the position that they have to play. We saw Danny Wrench on the screen. We're live from our Silent World yacht. It's not going to be very silent in here once the moves get going up there.
Not at all. And it is somewhat weird, right? You know, we may have some technical issues because, you know, you're on a yacht.
I love it.
You know, the weather, by the way, is a little ominous outside. I saw some dark clouds. Hopefully that represents something on the board. I don't know for which player. I'm not picking a player in this one, but it is this kind of unusual, weird setting. The studio, even the so-called studio we're in, it's not a studio. You should see how crazy the scene is. It's just what you're doing. It's something original, something fresh, it's something different. It's something really worthy of a title like freestyle.
It's something that's never been seen before in the chess world. And we saw the playing arena earlier as well. Maurice, you're absolutely right. I have never seen chess done like this. You know, it's not just the format, but also the setting. And of course, all of this, we're all in Singapore to announce the big announcement of the Freestyle Grand Slam Tour for 2025, which will feature 5 events across iconic cities all over the world. And then we will eventually have the freestyle, so to say, the world champion, the best player when it comes to a Fischer Random.
Yes, and you have to give credit to the organizers. Right? the idea that you could do something like this, that you should have a tour over something that has never really been formalized before. It's brand new, it's fresh, it's original, it's daring to say the least, and it's something that potentially could fall flat on its face if nobody cares about it. But what I've seen so far from the kind of events they organize, Weissenhaus was spectacular. The event we played in yesterday was also amazing.
So much fun.
The rooftop at the Sky Bar, people were dancing, music was blasting, and we were getting to play freestyle against with two of the best players on the planet. They're real visionaries, and sometimes you're going to see those kind of weird hiccups happen, but it's because they're so daring that these kinds of events will take place.
And the format itself, right? Freestyle chess, starting the game that we've known for centuries in a position that's not the standard position. We're so used to that. Our minds are so conditioned, but then we forget that 518, that's 518, that is our standard chess position. Is just one of the subset of the 960 possible starting positions that we can play our first moves in. And I want you to just break this down to us, right, Maurice? Because everyone watching this event, when they see, you know, the fresh position, the new position the players will be playing for the first time, what are the kind of things that they should be looking out for?
Well, let's be clear. Again, 518 is something we're used to. When you're used to something, you don't necessarily want people to rock the boat, right? We've been studying the Sicilians, my favorite line in the French. That's what I've been preparing for all this time. And suddenly somebody tells you, no, well, the bishop on C8, right now it's actually on B8. And you're thinking, oh, what am I supposed to do? But there are critical things in freestyle that are still the same as in 518. There's still central control. There's still king safety. There's going to be a pawn structure that gets set up on the board in some way. You still have to coordinate your pieces. And I think that is actually the biggest challenge, is coordinating the pieces behind the pawn structure that you set up. And once you have that feel enough times playing something like freestyle, you'll see that it is very similar to 518. When I watch Garry Kasparov especially, and I just saw him in St. Louis at that Chess 9LX event, after 15 moves, always, Gary's pieces were on gorgeous squares. It just looked like a chess position. And you say, well, how's he pulling this off? Everybody else, well, not everybody else, but there'd be players who you'd look at and say, man, your position looks horrible. Like, your queen is still stuck in the corner, a knight's on an ugly square. Gary would always find a way to coordinate his forces together. And that is somebody who understands the feel of chess the right way, that no matter what, you're looking to coordinate your pieces and you're looking for problem pieces.
Yes.
What piece in the position may suffer from this long-term issue that it's stuck behind pawns? You get a bishop that's frozen behind a pawn structure, and you're thinking, why didn't I organize this well? You want to look for those problem pieces in every single position. And then once you resolve those problem pieces, then the rest should be much more manageable.
And right there, we've got position number 87, and this will be the starting point for our two players. You know, you mentioned Gary, and there's always this debate in the chess world. Who is the GOAT of chess? And there are two names that stand out. It's always a fight between Garry Kasparov and Magnus Carlsen. We saw Magnus on our screens earlier right now, setting up the position, also trying to take everything in that's happening, and all the points, all the breakdown that you've got for us, Maurice, about what to look out for. I think we'll also be trying to dive deeper into along with all those very critical moments. And you know, Magnus and Fabi, right? And there it is. We've got our reveal right now. That is our first position for round one between Magnus and Fabi. What strikes to you in this one, Maurice?
Well, I do want to also point out a third name on this GOAT list. We don't want to have too much recency bias, and that is one Bobby Fischer. He's also in the GOAT debate as well. And by the way, he's the one who came up with this format in the first place. That's why it was initially called Fischer Random. So let's just give respect where respect is due. But you're absolutely right. This position is the position we're looking at, and this is position number 87. And what do I notice right away? Well, you know you're not supposed to have knights in the corners. That's in regular 518. So in this case, the knight on A1 and the knight on A8, that looks like an issue. The bishop on H1 already fianchettoed. That's just on a sweet diagonal. You can just push your pawn to G3 or to G4. That's not going to be an issue. However, I do spot a weak pawn on A7 and A2. and it is attackable, or they're attackable by a push of the F pawn. So if you play a move like F4 on move 1, the queen is suddenly hitting the A7 pawn, and queen takes A7 wins a piece. I mean, you don't just win a pawn, you win a whole piece right away. So that is something that is a clear tempo gainer. In 518, that's not possible. One move, suddenly you're threatening something. Here, it clearly is.
And we've got the colors as well. We had the draw of colors. It's Magnus Carlsen who starts this position with the white pieces. And everything that you just pointed out, it feels that white can get the momentum going early on right now, trying to target those pawns on the queen side. Now, out of these 960 positions, there are certain rules to be followed while setting them up. Keeping to Fischer's idea of how it's played, the bishops have to be in opposite colors to create that dynamic. The king needs to be in the middle of two rooks. Castling is still allowed. And apart from that, of course, the pieces are set up randomly, mirroring each other. So all the 960 positions, they follow the same rule, including 518, which is our standard chess position.
Absolutely. And again, this point I want to make, if I can, on this board is this move F4 and queen takes with A7 as a major threat. That threat is so potent that I'm sure Fabi, with the black pieces, suddenly is in a little bit of a state of panic. Maybe I'm overstating it, but the idea that suddenly that pawn could come under threat on move 1, right? Again, in 518, there is no such thing. You can't make a move and threaten a pawn. Like, just I make a move and I'm threatening your pawn right away. An unprotected pawn, it just doesn't exist. The F7 square, we know, the 4-move checkmate, all of us know the scholar's mate. Yes, that is something that can happen, but that takes 4 moves to happen. Or if you push a pawn on E5 and I play knight F3, it's because you put the pawn there. But to just be sitting, the pawn just be sitting there and it's hanging on move 1, that is very specific, and I'm sure Magnus is deeply thinking about that. Can I exploit the step that I can take by pushing that pawn, hitting A7, especially since black cannot repeat or replicate the same idea, because after queen A7, then F4, F5, queen A7, that A2 pawn is protected.
Now, we know, and I think we should let everybody know, that Fabi's got help at hand here. He's got Wesley So, who's also in the yacht somewhere right now with Fabi, looking and discussing the positions. The players have got about 10 minutes before clock start, time to really take in and decipher things for themselves. But we see Magnus. He's a lone ranger right now. He's thinking and taking in everything by himself. He doesn't need no one right now. He's completely locked in, completely zoned in. And also, Wesley So, with Fabi, Wesley is the first world champion of a Fischer Random. So that's pretty cool for Fabi to have that.
Seems kind of unfair.
I mean, we're talking about the GOAT. Magnus needs no one right now.
I mean, come on. Is
Ooh,
there's
Fabi.
I see Fabi, but I don't see Wesley.
Right now.
We were told Wesley would be helping him, but maybe they feel it would be unfair. I mean, a 2-on-1 like that just sounds wrong. I mean, it does sound wrong. And Fabi's a pretty lonely man right now, just staring at the board. Also, by the way, neither one of them moving the pieces. When I see this normally, they do move the pieces. When you see them analyzing, for example, like I said, at the event I just came from, the Chess 9LX event in St. Louis, they have a partner, they're moving pieces around. What about this? What about that? What about this? Okay, now we see Magnus moving something. Fabi has not as yet. And yes, did I see F4 on the board? F4 is on the board, and we see that F5, and that issue that I brought up, the pawn that's sitting on A7 and A2, comes into play pretty quickly. That again, that F4 move is very specific. What's happening on that side of the board, F4 and F5.
I just love how
that's
both
the danger.
players are on different levels in the yacht right now, just taking this in, and they'll be facing each other in just a few moments from now. Magnus trying to work out the intricacies of the opening. We were highlighting the weakened pawns on the queen side. How can you control the center? He's trying to break all of that down. Now, in standard chess, the fastest checkmate happens in 2 moves. And that's the quickest way to win a game. It's called the fool's mate. The position that we've got right now, position number 87. Maurice, what do you think? Can you see the fastest checkmate on the board?
Absolutely. I think that the problem is that C2/C7 square is potentially vulnerable, although it would require some help. I mean, just like fool's mate requires help, that would be a fool's mate itself. And that pawn is vulnerable at some point we'll be able to pull that up on the screen so we can see it. But look at that queen, that white queen of Magnus's on the A7 square already. As I mentioned, that is so specific. Once you see a weakness, you home in on it, and there is Magnus thinking, wait a minute, maybe I'm causing some problems here. As you see, that is something that you have to look at every time you look at an original position in freestyle.
And I think time's up.
You have to look for the specific weakness and see whether or not you could take advantage, especially when you have the white pieces. And there, Magnus is absolutely thinking of putting that bit of pressure on Fabi. And I'm sure Fabi is frantically trying to make sure that he does not get in trouble because of that one threat. Now, I do think it's defensible from what I've seen, but you do have to be careful. And if I can pull up a board at some point, then I'll be able to show it on my screen. But there are problems on that queen side that just make one wonder. Like, they've been looked at by engines that say white has a real advantage here. Something like plus 8-3, I think, is one of those evaluations. You don't want to land in a position like that when you have black and you only see this position once. You're not going to see it and get it yourself as white. You only see it once, and that could be an issue. But then again, to play perfect engine moves is always a challenge.
And time's up for analyzing, and I think Magnus is waiting for his opponent to arrive to get going. You know, I was watching his face while he was playing it out, and I got the feeling that Magnus thinks that there is something in this position where he can fight for that advantage early on. And he said this yesterday as well. When your queen is in the corner, in the starting position, always try to look for ways to activate it immediately.
Sorry, look at this. He's moving on the screen from what I'm seeing. He is in control of this position. We're seeing Magnus at the actual game board, and we're seeing his analysis as he's moving on the board. So he's not seeing any evaluations or anything, but he's making this move, and he's saying, and somehow he hasn't replaced the A7 pawn, which I think needs to be put back on the board. But we see here it's missing from the screen. So don't put too much credit in this one. I think he just hasn't placed it properly on the A7 square. But he is just experimenting with ideas. The engine's not feeling that last move, D4, because that square is hanging on A2. Again, that pawn, and then subsequent issues on the C7 square. If the knight comes out from A8 and goes to B6, then a knight C3, knight B5 can actually be threatening. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that you can have a serious threat that early on in the game, and Magnus is experimenting with it. So we're seeing this board, which, again, we shouldn't consider as the real board because it's what Magnus is just moving on his own screen. And now he's actually back in the original position. So we'll start soon. I mean, freestyle is about freestyling, isn't it?
I think he's feeling good about the starting position that he's got. You know, he's very aware of these ideas. And now a lot of these starting positions end up in a symmetry. And I don't think that's possible in the one that we've got right now. And we've got that up on our screen, right? And Magnus completely zoned in, locked into what he has to do next. He's figured it out. And, you know, if I had to take a guess, I think the first move that Magnus wants to get up on the board is move that F-pawn 2 steps ahead and just activate the queen. We saw that happen on the analysis board. It's one of the candidate moves that he's got in his mind, and it just makes so much sense. A move that controls the center, opens up not one but two of the majors right there, and puts an immediate pressure and asks questions immediately to Fabi. How does he want to counter it? And I don't think it's a very easy question to answer. That said, Fabi, who's probably just a few steps away from us right now, also looking at the position, is perhaps thinking about the same thing. How does he reply to F4?
We know and now I'm in control of this board, and this move F4, I mean, it's just a real move to consider. The threat on this pawn is severe. I told you the move knight B6, there is this potential challenge of a knight being able to go to this square. That's mate. I mean, things start to hang very quickly on this side. You could put a lot of pressure. Even the move A4 could happen and challenge the presence of this knight. And so you see Magnus, he is intensely thinking about this. By the way, normally you don't see this face from Magnus. I don't. He's a bit more relaxed. He'll probably get into that zone once he starts playing, but I think he spots something, and it's going to be interesting whether or not he goes right for this direct line. I would bet money on the move f4, but what do I know? I mean, these guys are the two best players on the planet, and they'll come up with other ideas as well.
He looks intense, but also calm. And we've seen Magnus's heart rate. It never seems to go over 80. So we've got the heart rate monitors as well locked into our players, which will give us more insight. By the way, Fabi has also arrived into the arena, and there we have it. Fabi with the higher heart rate, crossing over 90. Stress levels so far for both these players at low. Magnus, he's always between 70 to 80 whenever I've seen him strapped into that heart rate monitor, regardless of what's going on the board. And I have a feeling that Magnus Carlsen has figured out the way to fight for an advantage early on in this one. The position has all the elements in the making of such an opening sequence.
It really does, but he knows who he's going against, and we see them across from each other now for the first time. And he knows Fabi is no joke. And you come at Fabi wrong, he could find the punishment. So Magnus has to be careful. He's not playing a slouch. He's playing a player who took him to the edge in that world championship that they played, could have easily actually won that title, but Magnus did take him down in tie breaks. And the recent matchup between them actually ended up in Magnus's favor, and Fabi still remembers that. He made mention of the fact that he's still smarting from this match they had in the finals at Weissenhaus. And I believe you were there to call that match.
That was the finals. Magnus did win that, winning the first ever Weissenhaus Freestyle Chess GOAT Challenge. But Fabi had a fantastic run. It's handshakes and it's lift off. It's a 60-minute game with a 30-second increment. So they've got that bonus time every time they make a move. Press the clock, and we've got one f4 on the board. It's the one Magnus was looking at, the one Fabi wanted. It's a threatened one. Queen takes pawn. How does Fabi react to this?
Yeah, we guessed this move. As I said, we identified the one weakness. You want the initiative when you have the white pieces. You want to somehow dictate the action. It's like the serve in tennis. If you can get a threat, your opponent has to stop and think about it. And I can't imagine why Fabi is still thinking now, because this should have been the move he was looking at all this time. F4 is the most pressing move. We do see the pawn on A7 under attack immediately. That's a piece, not just a pawn. That's a whole piece you're trying to win, because those knights are unprotected. So there has to be a critical move. Do you play a move like knight to C6? This knight will come out and defend the pawn on A7. So that's one way of handling it. Another way of handling it is also to bring your knight to B6. It is a much more challenging situation you have to think about, because A4 threatens A5 right away. That pawn can go down the board. So that's a secondary move. You're not going to push a pawn to B6, because then this knight is a problem in the corner. You'll have to push this pawn as well to get your knight out. So that said, I am a little bit surprised, and maybe he's just trying to get his composure together. I'm a little bit surprised looking at the screen right here that Fabi did not have a move ready for the move F4. And he knows that this is what Magnus has been looking at all this time as well. So this is a situation for him. He doesn't want to make a bad move. You give Magnus an advantage early, it's lights out.
I think that's the biggest problem, that Fabi hasn't responded yet. But it is also a smart thing to do, because the openings are something that the players are not familiar with. This is really the point in the game where you want to be completely sure of your response. And Fabi has decided to develop the knight, blocking that diagonal the queen was sniping at that A7 pawn on. So the knight comes out. And now, as far as I remember, this is not the move Magnus was checking out after F4.
Yes, the challenge with this move, again, is the possibility of the move A4 looking to play the move A5. That is very concrete. And remember, the knight coming out no longer defends the pawn on C7. It was just on A8 defending that pawn. So anytime the knight lands on C3 in one move, it can then threaten knight B5, hitting the A7 pawn, and also threatening a monster, immediate, smothered mate. So this particular question, as Magnus settles in, even if he had looked at the move knight B6 and discarded it because he had a move in mind, he has to now rethink that, because he's saying, wait a second, it's Fabi. I trust him. He's not just going to make some random move, especially since Fabi was thinking for some time before he actually played knight b6. So he's got to be thinking, okay, whatever I thought was good, let me double check that, spend some time in the opening. And that's what you'll find, Tanya, in freestyle. The opening is actually where players play the slowest. In normal 518, everybody's so prepared. You can play 17 moves just like that before. I remember sitting down once. I had Grandmaster Patrick Wolf sitting next to me. I sat down. He was playing Paul Cho, I think it was. And I'm trying to make moves on my board, and they're blitzed out 22 moves. Like that. I'm like, dude, slow down. You have to just marvel at how fast they were playing because of the preparation before they slow down. But in freestyle, it's the exact opposite. The opening is the space where you actually stop and think and have to work things out and make sure you're not making any mistakes.
And this is the reason, right, why Magnus loves this format. One of the reasons why he chose to walk away from the World Championship was, apart from the format of everything, was opening preparation and how deep it goes and how tiring it gets to go through that and the feeling that the game is losing its originality. And here you've got chess for move number 1. Now, I want to talk a little bit about these two players, right? Because freestyle chess is so much about originality and creativity over the board. When we speak of Fabiano Caruana, the two things that immediately come to mind is that he's perhaps the best prepared player on the planet when it comes to opening preparation. It's one of his absolute ace cards. And the other is he's a beast when it comes to calculation, an absolute beast. And of course, a very universal player, but these are really his two striking features. But then yet, he's such a force to reckon with when it comes to a format that completely chucks opening preparation out of the window into the sea right outside our window right now, Maurice. What is it about Fabi that makes him such a strong player when it comes to freestyle chess?
Well, you mentioned his ability to calculate. He is absolutely a monster when it comes to calculation. He'll see moves, just multiple moves deep, see positions. But also, I want to add something about Fabi. He is a fighter. Everybody says that. He's playing for a win with white and black. You'll see him play somewhat dubious openings with dubious reputations from time to time. And you'll say, well, why are you playing? Because, you know what, I'm trying to win. I'm not just sitting here trying to make some Berlin draw. You actually rarely see Fabi play Berlin. He just did a chessable course on the Archangel, for example, or Archangels, as they say. Those are fighting openings. He wants to play fighting chess, fun chess. He'll play a Benoni on you because that's what he's after. So Fabi likes to see fresh, fighting, original positions. Even though, as you said, he is absolutely one of the best, maybe the best. I'm not going to say there's so many well-prepared players out there, but one of the best players on the planet. He has that preparation, has that reputation for deep preparation. But he also is somebody who very much is into calculating, being belligerent, being about the war. And we've seen a couple more moves being played this night on C3. Fabi has now played the move F5. And the eval for position 87 is 0.29. So not a big deal. We thought it might have been even more than that for white, but it looks like just a little bit of a starting edge.
And these are some starting stats for the position that the player started with. Now, F4 is the move that's been played maximum number of times. 70 games on F4 in position 87. That's the one that Magnus chose, not the knight move, not the other pawn. And look at the wins for white. White leads with 157 wins. Very few draws. So a lot of decisive results seem to come out of this particular position. Yes, you said the evaluation gives it at 0.29, and that's not massive for white, but practically black has to be so incredibly careful from pretty much the first move. Because remember that queen coming out. And now what we have on the board is the symmetry, right? You've got the F4 pawn and the F5 pawn. Very often in this, Maurice, it's about who gets the first central break in. Will it be the king's pawn? Will it be the G2 pawn moving forward? And a successful pawn break gives you the advantage.
Two things I'll say. First of all, the draw rate is shocking.
Yes.
I mean, shocking. And that's one of the great things about freestyle. When you can prepare an opening, we've seen it happen time and time again. We see the GM draw. They'll play 20 moves and start repeating moves. And it's like, what was that? Well, the guy knew the preparation. I tried a line that I thought he might not know. He happened to know it, and it leads to a draw. And then the fans are like, well, what happened? Well, we came for a show, and you guys just showed your preparation was all. But freestyle, there is no such easy way to make just a simple book draw. So you'll see that number. That number of only 11 draws was like 157 wins for white, almost 120 plus for black. With 11 draws, that's there's no chess opening like that, just zero in 518, the standard chess position. So that's one thing. The second thing that you have to note, and we should start talking about more seriously, is
I think we should start talking about the headphones that Magnus just put on.
What the heck?
That just happened.
What was that about? We don't have to inform me. Why does he have headphones on? Okay, is he listening to freestyle rap right now? What is going on? Okay, that when we get some information, that will be relayed to us. Magnus listening to music.
No music on, but there is a live audience in the room right now, and they're watching the players in action. So I think just some noise cancellation headphones to completely focus on what's going on. And Magnus is zoned in.
I mean, he was playing with music blasting yesterday in a club. Like, he needs to worry about a live audience.
That's because he had a very strong teammate.
Okay, we're not going to go into that at the moment, though you're reveling in your victory. But let us get back to the point I wanted to make, and that is the point about the kings. At some point, you got a castle. Like, at some point, you're going to put your king somewhere. And where is the king, or are the kings going to go? At the moment, it seems as though white should be able to get the bishop off of c1 and then castle queenside, which in this position, I say queenside. Let me also get the terminology down, because when we say queenside, I'm referring to 518. The queen is normally on the d1 square, ergo queenside is to the left. But in this position, queenside is to the right, because the queen is sitting on g1. So terms like queenside, old heads like me have to get out of our system, because there's no such thing. Queen side, king side, we don't know what side might show up when you're playing freestyle. But at any rate, to the left, he can castle. In this situation, once the bishop leaves that square, that c1 square, to wherever, we'd imagine after this pawn moves up in some way, then the bishop will leave, and then this king will castle, and it will resemble normal castling, which means it'll just go over next to the rook on this side. The rook is perfectly placed, will not have to move at all. Kind of a weird thing that you just move your king. It's a king move after all, castling, and here it will be only a king move.
That's the fascinating thing about this format, right? Your opening principles are still the same. You want your pieces out. You want to control the center. You want to get your king to safety. You want to do all of that and find this harmony and then go at your opponent. But the starting position is something that you've never seen before. So how do you make all these things happen at once? That's
why they're 2,800. And that's why we're sitting here doing commentary. But seriously, just take a look. Bring your knights out. The knights are out. You already see two knights on very good squares. Make sure your bishops have open diagonals. Well, when you push pawns, you are going to block your bishops from time to time. So the f-pawn, obviously, right now is blocking this bishop on c1. But sooner or later, the move g3 will happen. The bishop can go to e3 at some point. So this square will be an axis square for it. And then the king will castle. So it's pretty much still the same thing. This could all happen in the next 6 to 8 moves. And we'll realize we have developed pieces. We have castled our king. We're controlling the center. Duh. That's all the stuff we've been taught from grade school. So it's still all about that. For these players, however, these are assassins. They're used to getting something, trying to get something anyway, from the very opening moves. And so if you as white don't get anything, you kind of feel like, I wasted my chance with the white pieces. After all, white goes first. And we talk about it being like the serve in tennis. It should be a little bit of an edge. So if you just play a few moves and you get to just static equality, remember, Fabi gets white tomorrow. So Magnus does not want to waste.
We're on move 3, and Fabi's heart rate is already over 100. That's a bit early in the day.
And by the way,
to get this stressed. And look at that knight. It's on the edge of the board. And that's a non-conventional decision by Fabi.
That is a non-conventional decision. He is guarding that critical c7 square from any kind of attack. And he's just overemphasizing protection on that square, as knight here no longer hits this pawn. But it does hit that one. And whether or not you make an excursion of this type this early is questionable. But it's an interesting question to look at. The move knight to b5 is something that you could consider here. I think it's just a little too early, because a little too premature to be moving pieces like this one so early in the game. But this knight sitting on the a6 square, that one makes me wonder. I mean,
But it's also headed to the b4 square. So Fabi has ideas of his own.
Yeah, I know.
You've got to stop that.
That's why I was thinking the move A3 just as prophylaxis against this knight being able to go here, this knight being able to go here. And now suddenly it's a bit stuck over on that square and could suffer from that problem for quite some time. So I got to say, I'm not really a fan. Okay, I'm more classically minded in this way anyway, of putting pieces on odd squares, even if it's to protect decent looking pawns. In this case, the c7 pawn is actually more than a decent one. It could be a heart attack waiting to happen if you let knight c7 happen at some point. But to put it on a6, right about now, this is what happens in freestyle. You make a move that's somewhat anti-classical, anti-positional. Your opponent might try to figure out a way to now normalize everything else about the position except your freaky move. So if Magnus can just play a few normal moves now, that knight on a6 could find itself on a poor circuit. The question is how exactly to do that, but I'm just, let's just keep our eye on that piece and see whether or not Magnus finds a way to highlight its deficiencies sitting on the side of the board where knights normally on the rim are supposed to be. Chances are dim, as they say.
Future is looking dim for that knight, but not for too long. Yes, you can take away that attacking square on b4, but Fabi undoubtedly wants to reroute it to the center of the board. He might be looking at pushing that c-pawn one step ahead. Maybe you can highlight that as well, that Fabi doesn't plan to just sit there on that edge of the board and bring that knight closer towards the center. It's so much about capturing these squares. Fabiano Caruana is world number 2. You know, he's the class apart. He's won chess line.
For a reason, we'll say.
For
about thousands of reasons. For 2,800 reasons.
For about 2,800 reasons. He's played a match against the GOAT himself. Hasn't lost a single classical game in that one. So there's a lot to be said about his own plans. And Magnus does take a decision. He's the one who goes towards the center of the board. He's allowing the knight to move forward. What do we make of that? It's a bit provocative of Magnus.
It is provocative, and of course, this move, knight b4, for all the beginners out there thinking, ooh, that's a yummy pawn to go grab. Let me go get it right away. Well, you have to be very careful indeed trying to go with a knight into someone's position because you may not end up being able to go back home. But I'm intrigued by this. This is a pretty funny line here, by the way. This move, knight b4, if you play the move a3, this is a horrible move because you think, oh, the knight's trapped. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that wonderful? Until a queen appears from out of nowhere and takes your knight. You think,
because there's supposed to be a knight on that square, not a queen.
What is the queen doing? And that happens in this format. That's pieces are where they don't belong, and you just forget about them. Sometimes you'll even make a move thinking your opponent can't do something, and then when you look down at the board, you're like, oh, my piece is not on the square it's supposed to be on. So that is definitely not something that Magnus would want to do here. So this move, however, you attack. Okay, we can attack as well. And this is a tempo in White's favor as the knight was guarding this square. So this is problematic for Black already. White's not worried about a move like this one at all because after this move, king to d2, the knight's under attack and Black will be hit on the c7 square as well. It's already one of those crazy chess positions to be analyzing. So neither side is going to be making the jump right away. I think, like I said, since Magnus has realized that knight b4 is not a problem, because I was playing a3 to just curtail that knight's possibilities. But since he's established that's not a problem, if he can just normalize everything else about the position, that knight could come back to haunt Fabi. And it may not be that big an edge. It may not be the end of the world, but you want everything to be perfect. I mean, when you're a chess player, you're a grandmaster. When you're 2,800, you want all your pieces to be harmonized in the best way possible. And again, that knight on a6 concerns me for the long term.
And perfection is exactly what's happened with standard chess, right? With opening theory, with advanced engines, that you know exactly how to respond to each other's move. And then you end up playing chess on move number 25. Here you've got a knight on the edge of the board on what, move number 3 already? A position that we haven't seen before. And you know what you pointed out about how the pieces are placed differently, and sometimes it's so easy to miss that. It's resulted in so many quick wins for this player. Fabiano Caruana had his shortest victory in Fischer Random in freestyle chess in just 13 moves, and I believe, Maurice, you were commentating at that event because there was a chess 9LX against Garry Kasparov. He beat him in just 13 moves. And tell me, when does that happen in 518? When does that happen in standard chess?
No, it's not. It's not going to happen. These players are not falling into those traps. Again, Fabi is Fabi, but chess is chess. And even though it is freestyle chess, you still have to put your pieces on great squares. And there are things that Magnus will be able to do. The move e4 comes as a very powerful pawn excursion into the middle of the board. That move gains space, also threatens to potentially bury this bishop sitting in the corner. So Fabi will have to be concerned about that. And will he be able to compete for central squares as well? I also make this point, once the bishop goes to e3, this king castles in one move. This pawn pushes, and when you look at the position, what do you say about that? This just looks like a regular, gorgeous chess position for white, right? Like, that's automatic. It wouldn't have taken any amount of time. Matter of fact, I'm just trying to figure out a couple of moves here to play that may be natural. I want to make some reasonable moves for black. Black does not want to play the move d5, or does he want to play the move d5? Maybe you need to play a move like this to fight for the center as well. I mean, maybe this is something that's necessary so that his e4 move loses some of its punch, because white, again, if white can get an e4, follow with a bishop out and castles, and then play g3, that's 4 moves. All it takes for white to be perfectly positioned, perfectly harmonized, with no difficulties anywhere in the position, and all of us could recognize that and say, well, that looks like a chess position.
And moves like d5 are difficult decisions for a chess player, because every pawn move has its own set of consequences. You end up weakening squares that you've left behind, that your opponent can start taking advantage of, some dark squared weaknesses. And Fabi also being a classical player, not wanting to give in to those strategic factors, it's a moment for him, because it's those kind of openings where really you can go wrong very, very soon. And I think now the margin for error at this point for Fabi is not that much. It's pretty little. He has to be precise in stopping ideas like the e-pawn moving forward, the white bishop getting into activity, white's king getting into safety, because for the black, it's a lot harder to do that.
You're feeling it right away. He's feeling the pressure.
He is feeling it. What's the clock situation? I mean, he's down on the clock as well.
He is down. They do have 60 minutes, but that could evaporate quickly, like no question about it. But again, this move d3 by Magnus, that is a clear indicator that he wants to dominate the center. We know about pawn centers. The pawn center, building a pawn center is the beginning of smashing your opponent, sitting on your opponent's face. Like, that is not a pretty picture. That's how you feel when you're playing a game, when if somebody has a pawn center that you can't do anything about. They have all the space, they control the board with pawns, your pieces can't go on any of those squares, and there are no easy breaks. You have to look for some good breaks, but there may be no easy breaks. I will also point out that what's funny about this position, often when you have to develop pieces in chess, you actually have to move them, right? You say develop a piece. Anywhere the pieces are sitting.
A decision, by the way. We've got to move on the board. Sorry, Maurice. He's played c6. So he's ignoring Magnus's threat completely. The knight that we were talking about, he's rerouting it to the center, and the board does not like it. Fabi has gone wrong. Fabi's my boy. Like, Fabi is a friend, but my homie's not looking good right now. I'm going to say it straight up, because this structure with a knight on a6, pawn on c6, this whole construction over here just doesn't look appealing at all. And I'm not feeling this particular position. By the way, the dark squares on that side are also becoming weak. Instead of e4, which still looks like a possibility, I'm looking at the move bishop to e3, and isn't the entire, back to the story about that queen side, he missed it,
under threat? Like, bishop e3 looks like a move.
And perhaps the move e4 was so much in Fabi's mind that he missed this idea of setting up the battery with the queen and the bishop. I actually don't see a way to counter the attack on the pawn on the left side of the board. Fabi might be about to lose material right now. And this is the point, right? Queen on g1. It's not something that you're used to. Understanding how that changes the dynamics. Bishop e3, queen g1, lining up against that knight on b6 is not something you get to see in chess. How easy is it to forget about this? Isn't that just going to find this?
Easy to forget. And again, I was trying to make this point about, in chess, when we say develop your pieces, it means take them from where they are and put them someplace else better, in their original 518 position. Almost no piece in chess is developed from where it stands, right? Like, you have to move your knights into the game, you have to move your bishops into the game, you have to move your queen into the game. However, this bishop, because of the rules of freestyle chess. Pieces could be on squares that they're just active right away. This bishop on h1, you just push this pawn somewhere, either 1 or 2 squares, and this bishop is already on a fantastic diagonal.
He plays it. It's on the
bishop
board.
e3 is on the board. We can see Fabi's face.
Reacted.
We can see that he knows c6 weakened.
That heartbeat is going up.
It should.
It was 90. Okay, it's coming down now, but this is the moment for Fabi. He knows something's gone wrong, and I think he spotted bishop e3 immediately after playing c6.
I mean, everybody should spot bishop e3 when you see c6 on the board, because every move has a drawback, and c6, you try to mitigate those drawbacks against the benefits of the move. No matter how good a move you play, you have to undefend some square. That's just the way chess is. Any move you make, you undefend some square. That's just reality. We can't help it. So what we try to do is whatever moves we make, whatever we're getting is much better than what we're losing. In this case, c6, whatever the benefits were, I'm keeping a knight out of b5 is the only reason I see for this move. Like, this is the only reason I see. And it looks like his queen side has been bothering him in his mind all this time. He put a knight on a6, then he played the pawn to c6. That's been the thing that's been bugging him, and he found only this way to defend. The problem is it doesn't stop, because now, let me just get these arrows going. Now bishop to e3 continues the pressure played on the board by Magnus, and that initiative along this diagonal with the battery of the queen and the bishop is so massive. The worst part about it,
It's 118. I told you.
It should be flying. And look at Magnus. Magnus is super cool right now at 65, because Magnus is going to be able to castle in one move. And after he plays g3 or g4, his pieces are just flown into the game.
It's
They're just with absolute fluidity.
Oh my goodness.
Just like that. And again, we see what happens when you have great players who know they're just about harmonizing the pieces and putting the pressure on the opponent. And even against a fantastic genius like Caruana, bad things could start to happen from the opening moves alone. And they have transpired here against Caruana.
Magnus is getting excited as well. There we see bishop e3, beautifully spotted by the world #1. But we know Fabi, he's a fighter. It's not going to be easy to try to now prove some compensation for most probably a pawn that Fabi's about to lose. But we've seen him finding that initiative, finding that counterplay, and this is the classic rivalry of the chess world, right? This is a clash between two titans of the chess world. We call this the El Clasico match, when it's Magnus versus Fabi, and their rivalry goes a long way back. Take a look.
Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana. For the past decade, these two have dominated classical chess. Most consider Carlsen the chess GOAT. He's won practically every tournament there is to win and achieved the highest recorded rating in history while doing it. World champion from 2013 to 2023, he laid down his crown to seek new inspiration and motivation in chess. Now he's here to take on his greatest competitors in freestyle chess, an exhilarating and fresh take on the game. In 2014, the year after Carlsen won his crown, Caruana set the chess world on fire with 7 consecutive wins in the Zinkfeld Cup, including a win against Carlsen. He rode his success to the 3rd highest rating in chess history. In 2018, the two contested their legendary World Championship match, standing as #1 and #2 in the world, separated by only 1 chess rating point. Both sides missed some massive chances in a classical match that ultimately finished tied before Carlsen won the tiebreak and retained his title. Carlsen has repeatedly said that only Caruana has ever come close to his level in classical chess. Now, here in 2024, Carlsen has already won a World Championship title in freestyle chess, while Caruana has won the world's most recent Freestyle Chess Super Tournament. It's the rematch the chess world has been waiting for. Who will emerge victorious?
It's a classic rivalry of chess, but right now, already on move #5, Magnus Carlsen with a big advantage. One mistake, one inaccuracy by Fabiano Caruana, and he's in a deep think. But it looks like the kind of think that you could be taking about an hour on the clock, but you're still going to end up worse, because Magnus has set up this battery with the queen and the bishop. Do you see what is Fabi's best chance to fight this out now, Maurice?
That's a really good question. And Fabi's going to be looking at it for a while, because the way he's going to lose material here, it's cancerous. It might be terminal. You cannot imagine. And when you said move five, I had to do a double take and say, it's move 5 we're talking about. He's going to have to figure out some kind of craziness to make happen on the board, and maybe some chaos, because what else? He hit
the chaos button. I don't think we have the move on our board right now, but I see it on our live screen.
Is that G5 I see?
G5.
Now,
it's G5 on the board.
That's real chaos and actually respect. I'm going to give respect to this move because, first of all, he needs to do something. He needs to do something, and he needs to do it now. He needs some kind of drama to happen on the board. And while one of the things about winning material is that it takes a number of moves to actually pull it off. So as Magnus plays bishop e3, that's one move. You're attacking the pawn, the knight, ergo threatening a pawn. When the pawn catches back, this queen lands on b6. Now, is this square a great square for the queen? Well, it could maybe come under attack later. It's not easy for me to see at the moment, but it's not necessarily the square you want your queen to necessarily be on. That said, you have to spend time to eat, basically, right? Like you have to wait.
What are you talking about? Pawn takes pawn is one move. That's another pawn sacrifice that Fabi's gone for.
I'm getting to that point. I'll get over that point in a second.
You know, Fabi said, I don't care about the pawn on the left side. Take one on the right side.
But making this point about the capture on the b6 square, the point is that bishop e3 had to be played to threaten to take a pawn. And then you have to go actually take the pawn. That's 2 moves to go get that pawn. So what do? If you're doing that, can we drum up any kind of play, any kind of counterplay, any kind of chaos on the other side of the board? And this is his attempt. Now, is it any good? Looks like a pawn potentially could be taken. But once you do this, you do gambit the center. E5 could land on the board. And let's be greedy. We're going to take a second pawn.
It's 2 pawns, Maurice. I don't see it. And you know what?
It's not 2
Bravery
pawns.
and desperation are 2 sides of the same coin.
Hold on.
To me, G5 is desperate.
Hold on. It's not 2 pawns because now you can play queen takes on g5. So it's still only 1 pawn, and you can no longer castle. So this is a gambit, right? Suddenly, how is white playing the next few moves? If you try to castle this way, well, guess what? We already opened up a file on this side, and f4 is also lying in wait. And what is your queen doing over on the b6 square? So this is not at all just grabbing stuff in the position. Taking that pawn, playing the move g5 as we go backwards, it does destabilize the one outpost that white has in the center, and it's that pawn sitting on f4. And if you just decide to grab and give black the center,
I hear you.
Then we could start, okay, let's ball. And this is an absolutely crucial move. I think it's a fantastic choice. Okay, maybe a desperate choice, but you asked the question and it has been answered. What are you going to do now, Fabi? Like, the guy's going to take one of your pawns. Fabi's like, you want my pawn? Take another one if you want. I'm not afraid. I'm going to show you some counterplay in this position. Yeah. And that is great, fantastic idea coming when I was shaking my head going, this could be over. Move 5 already? And he's like, I got this.
Yeah. No, it's very creative, very inventive by Fabi. And as they say, necessity is the mother of all inventions. You know, you land yourself up into this troubled position where suddenly you're about to lose material and you want to create a mess on the board. And G5 was definitely not a move that Magnus was expecting because he's gone into a think right now as well. But all that said, I think Magnus is going to grab one of those 2 pawns, either first on the right side or on the left side, and Fabi will still have to prove compensation, but it had to be done. You can't just sit and say, take my pawn, come at me. You know, you can't say that to a player like Magnus because damn right he will.
Look at the stress levels, though. Remember what was happening before? We had Fabi all the way up over 100, and we were thinking, oh my goodness, this could get worse. We might need a defibrillator in the room because this guy's going to have a heart attack. Guess what? He's calmed down now. He's calmed down a bit, much more than he was. Stress level at low. Like, okay, this move is a real move. And let me say this about Magnus. There are so many things that Magnus does well. It's ridiculous. We can start listing and not stop for a while. But one thing that people know is the way you challenge Magnus is try to bring chaos on the board. You need to do it successfully because he knows how to control a chess position so well. That is one of his greatest strengths as a practitioner. He can just make you look silly, like you had no ideas. It's Karpovian in this respect. But if you can somehow just create some kind of madness, chaos, just create a tornado if possible. That is the one time that I've seen Magnus be a tad uncomfortable. And because what he'll try to do is he'll try to reel the position back down. Instead of just amping it up, you do something like this against somebody like Kasparov, and he'll start thinking, oh, really, you want to come in my house like this? Different attitude. Magnus is more like, just sit there so I can beat you up, okay? You're really not going to have any chances when I'm done. But if you can somehow make a move like G5, sack a pawn, play E5 for compensation, you can somehow turn things around. And I think that this move G5 was super spot on point. And look how Magnus is now giving pause. We were talking about clock times. Now it's Magnus who's starting to think. And Fabi, realizing he was in some trouble, kudos to him to find a move like G5 and mix things up. Yes, you might get a pawn. You won't get two. After the move E5, we see that you're not going to get two pawns by taking twice because this pawn is in danger from that queen. So that means you might get a pawn, but hey, a pawn is just a pawn. I mean, it's if I get compensation, and by the way, you're giving up your bishop as well, so my bishop will someday be a beast on the long diagonal, and your bishop will be off the board. Remember, you put these pawns on light squares, so they're dark square weaknesses in the position. I'm going to play this line once more as we play this out. Takes, and takes. And you can see the Swiss cheese issues, the dark squares in White's position that are weakened, and White will have to be concerned about that as well. Not to mention the center has blown up. Castles is playable? What? I'm starting to like black in this position for sure.
Challenge, and now he's about to make his decision, by the way. And I'm just wondering if he's just going to be, you know what, I don't want to give up my bishop. I don't want to allow you to take the center. I just want to keep the tension. And instead, he does go for the pawn.
Here we go.
What we were looking at. This is about to blow up now.
It's party time.
It's on Fabi. He immediately responds. It's something that he was calculating. You don't go G5 with no idea what the follow-up is. We've already got E5 on the board. Will Magnus now grab that B6 knight? Or does he keep the bishop on the board?
I cannot
imagine. One
imagine.
thing's for sure, Maurice, that Magnus was not expecting G5, and that's been a real spinner in the position.
This has changed everything. This has changed everything. And again, he is up a pawn, and his intuition, you talk about pluses, that's one of them. His intuition is off the scale. He made mention of this, in fact, in an interview. He said, intuitively, one of the things that I realize is my intuition tells me the move in 10 seconds. It says, like, every time I stop and think for too long, I usually make some kind of error because I'm sitting there for like 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and I don't trust myself. My intuition usually tells me what to do, even in a classical game, in 10 seconds, and the rest of the time he's spending just checking what he intuitively feels. I'm curious what his intuition tells him right now. Is it grab the knight on B6? I don't think so. And sometimes the thing about intuition is if a position is chaotic enough, intuition sort of speaks to your experience, the kind of thing you've seen before. How should I handle this? I should handle it in a way that I've seen in my memory banks or many games that I've played. But what happens when the position is completely chaotic and you have no moorings, you have no anchors where you go, yeah, you know, this is like the Benko, right? Like, what I'm actually thinking right now. This is like some kind of weird kingside Benko gambit weirdness, or a Blumenfeld gone completely off. I mean, I'm just trying to get some reference points in opening theory so I can even understand what's happening here. But the thing is, your intuition could betray you. And I think right now, or it may not even assist you in exactly what to do in a position like this one.
Because you said intuition, and I've seen some games of Magnus while I was at Weissenhaus, the Freestyle Chess GOAT Challenge, and I know he wants to keep that G pawn alive. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to go for bishop takes knight. I think first Magnus will try to consolidate on the right side of the board. You know, you've said F takes G. You've said that G pawn on G5. Get that H pawn rolling up. Defend that pawn and then start threatening on the other side of the board. Magnus hates giving activity to his opponent. The top players, they don't care about the quantity of pawns. They care about piece activity. They care about the initiative. He's not going to allow Fabi's queen outside. He's not going to go, you know, take the center, get your pieces going. He's going to make that difficult, Maurice. If I had to predict right now, I think we're going to see that H-pawn move 2 steps ahead. H4 would be my guess.
You know, my good buddy, and you know him well, of course, Yasser Siron, when you just said the top players don't care about the number of pawns on the board. Yeah, it's just like, probably looking at you, Tanya, how dare you? You have to come to class. You haven't heard about the Pawn Grubbers Club. The Pawn Grubbers Club, get the pawn and
I'm
keep
not a member of that.
In some ways, well, Yasser's sitting there, I'm sure, right now watching going, well, next time you come to St. Louis, I'll make sure
I think
you know.
got decisions. By the way, it wasn't H4, but it was the G-pawn moving up, so he doesn't go pawn grabbing in B6. He plays the move G4. He's provoked Fabi to push that F-pawn ahead, and I think we can just
G4?
It was played.
That's a move. Now, this is a completely different direction, and it's fascinating. What he's doing here, and again, we're talking about stabilizing the position. What he wants to do is fix the fluidity of the pawn mass that is staring him in the face, right? These two pawns, they are, when I say fluid, they have options. You never know what they might do. Or they might even be joined by another pawn on D5. So this could be a problem in the long run for white as these pawns are flowing. So what he wants to do is to make the pawns get fixed. And the move F4 was played by Fabi, instantly threatening the piece. And now bishop takes on B6 played, pawn takes. So the dark square bishop is now gone from the board. Note this square E4 could potentially come under this knight's purview in some way. And look at this knight D6 check, by the way, could become very strong. But Magnus ignored all of that and said, I am going to take this pawn. Now, this move does allow queen takes, so that means he hasn't won anything. And knight E4 doesn't really bother white so much, black so much because of this check. But it is possible here to castle. Take a look at this one.
I'm just going to say this is an absolutely crazy position. We've got the evaluation bar sort of guiding us onto what's the path ahead. But let's just forget about that. I mean, these are two players. They're the two best players on the planet. You've got this in front of you. You know, the king's in the center, the queen's on one side of the board, the G-pawn's up the board. It's something that's really out of nowhere. It's not, you know, there are no recognizable patterns yet of this. No recognizable patterns from that 5-1-8 from standard positions. You're pointing out these light squares. It's so many dynamics that you have to work out. Yes, the eval bar says equal, but if you're playing with black pieces, you're actually quite worried here. Because
your point, sorry, I wanted you to finish your thought, but your point is what you just said. The clue is hidden in what you just said, which you said you're playing with the black pieces. Because frankly, if I have white, I see a lot of things that make sense.
Of potential here.
Everything, but I mean, it just makes sense, right? The knights are in normal squares. The rooks are in normal squares.
Your queen's
the bishop is on a normal diagonal. The queen happens to be on an excursion that it normally isn't, but we're not complaining.
But you're not complaining.
But I'm not complaining about it. It's actually black that you have to look back and say, what are the patterns that black is playing for? That is the point. And so it is definitely unusual from that perspective. And we'll also point out, where is the black king going to hide? Because the pawn shield is up the board. There's a pawn on F4. It's not back on F7. There's no pawn on G7. There's no protection.
You can't hide with this pawn formation that you've done with black. There's absolutely nowhere to run. Queen takes pawn on the board, and now Magnus, he's thinking about, does he go all out? Does he put that knight on the center of the board? It's so inviting, Maurice. But then you're giving back your material as well.
Knight here, remember this check. I mean, that's a real check to have to consider, but black does have this move, and I'm not a fan of just allowing this sudden check to happen. And then the move D5 could chase the knight out of there, and why did you put your knight in the middle of the board? Now, don't forget, black is actually superior in the center of the board at the moment in terms of the number of pawns, so this is a problem that white will have to consider. I also want to point out, when you castle on this side, yes, there are no pawn protections over there anymore, except for this sliver of an H-pawn, but this bishop has no counterpart. This bishop will protect that side as effectively as a pawn, and you will not be able to get through to that king that easily.
Yeah, he's thinking. He's trying to understand that. Does he get his king to safety first? Does he jump in with the knight? But what's always amazing about Magnus to watch is how, regardless of the mess, the chaos on the board, the heart rate is just so steady.
Joe Cool.
The guy just never gets stressed about the position. And that's what sets him apart. It could be absolute blood on the board, a complete dogfight like we're seeing right now. White, does he castle? Does he go 94? Does he allow black to give a check? Allow black to capture a pawn? So many decisions. But the guy's at 71.
Yeah, I'm impressed. It's epic. That kind of cool is absolutely epic. You should get like military folks and emergency responders to take some lessons from him, because somehow he's just always cool, calm, and collected. That said, this position is crazy.
It's
this position,
nuts.
We could see from the eval bar, in fact, that white's edge is only slight. When the white's edge is only slight and white is currently up a pawn, that means the engine is saying black has compensation. Black has some real compensation. Otherwise, the engine would say, the eval bar would be more than that and be like, we're just up a pawn. What are you doing? The eval bar is saying, yo, up a pawn. What? I don't know. Dude has the center. This pawn, when it lands on d5, is going to be a problem. There's threats to this. Even if you protect it with a move like bishop to f3, for example, there is the move d5 to at least consider, which... What would you say about this pawn formation? Do you see this one every day? You open a chess manual? The answer is no. You don't ever see this pawn formation, and Magnus will have to consider it when he thinks about his very next move. Also, by the way, don't forget, black is ready to castle. Black's king will be out of the center. So if I play, let's say I castle in this position, and let's say you castle, and then I go for the move d5.
Oh, Maurice, by the way, Magnus has made his decision. He does something that wasn't even on our radar. It's just out of the blue. He puts his own knight at the edge of the board, and I see your reaction there. Unbelievable stuff. Knight to a5. We were not even considering. You asked me to guess 5 moves in the position. That will not make the list. I see the threat. Yes, b7's weak. But what on earth is going on? He's allowing a check on h4. He's allowing that g4 pawn hanging. Black can still go shot castle. Impressed, or how impressed are we with this one?
I mean... my first immediate intuition is
this can't be it.
That's not a move. And now that we actually have the eval bar as well, it's saying the advantage that he had is now gone, and it is black who's actually ahead. So the eval bar is helping to confirm our intuition, because I'm a guy, I'm ready to sack stuff in order to get compensation. So
it's a good thing that move wasn't in our top 5 radar moves.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not trying to just move a piece I've already developed.
By the way, Fabi's definitely more chill than he was 2 moves ago.
I mean, why would you... I'm trying to understand, but it's Magnus, so I'm trying to understand the strategic implications behind knight a5. Is it just pure greed? Like, you just want to take on b7? My bishop on c8 sucks. Like, if I have to give you that piece, you want to take knight b7 and let me take, I'm happy to do that. Like, please, just, make it happen. You can do whatever you like. By the way, castle's played now, and let's just go down this little rabbit hole for a second. Takes. Okay, you are threatening my knight, but this knight could move. Is c5 not a move? I mean, c5 to potentially e6 to d4 could be a thing. By the way, now if you castle in this direction, there are files opening up. There's a diagonal straight towards your king. You don't have a dark squared bishop anymore to use to protect that side. And I'm not even using the queen h4 check that happens to be sitting there at any point in time. Like, that could also be a disruptor. Why would Magnus start chasing pawns in a position like this? I am shocked to see a move like knight a5 land on the board, and this shock has been confirmed by the engine that this was not necessarily a great move to play. But again, it's Magnus. He must have understood that chasing pawns is not enough. I'm trying to understand the strategic implications.
The fact that he slowed down now, you play a move like knight a5, you usually would have a follow-up. And Fabio responds with shot castle, and that's definitely a move.
By the way. Quickly.
And that's a move that's got to be on Magnus's radar for black while he was looking at knight a5. And now he's uncertain about going pawn hunting, pawn grabbing, and there are so many complications and dynamics in this position, tactics everywhere, that I think, Maurice, we need reinforcements. And I've got some good news, because we've got just that. We've got Danny right now with Wesley, so the 2019 Fisher Random World Champion, giving us his insights about all the action that we're seeing.
not every day you find yourself on a super yacht with a super grandmaster analyzing some super chess here with Freestyle, Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen upstairs. Wesley So, how are you?
Very good. It's nice to be with chess friends, here watching the game.
Just
It's
hanging out.
nice to run into you, Danny.
Yeah,
Like,
just totally random.
so weird.
Yeah.
So weird how you, how you run the people
All the time,
and,
yeah. In Singapore on a
especially
yacht.
in the airport. Yeah.
Give us your very quick thoughts on who has the better chances right now after just a few moves here in game one.
Well, I mean, it's not really fair to the players because I have a chess.com bar here, right? Like,
And a really strong player next to you.
yeah, that too. And we have Mike Klein here. Mike Klein actually suggested a very strong move.
Accidentally.
And I'm
whatever.
not using an engine.
But yeah, and Mike Klein suggested the move a4, which actually looks very strong.
Okay. So you like where Magnus is at right now, off to a decent start.
Well, as I said, I have a bar, so it's not really fair to them. But bar seems to give a pretty significant advantage for white. And it's funny because it seems Fabiano played all the most natural moves. Like normally, I would copy, but as he told me, knight c6 could run into some problems after knight b5.
Yeah, I came up with that idea.
Yeah,
That was my idea.
that's that. Yeah, you have many good ideas.
Thank you. Put that on camera too.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, so I mean it's hard to see where black could have improved because like f5 was natural, knight b6 is natural.
Yeah.
Just white has the extra tempo. I thought maybe g6 could be interesting, but black always has to watch out for knight b5 and have to calculate these things, like queen c4. Maybe there's queen c5, but
Crazy talk.
yeah, these pawns are always vulnerable. So Fabiano likes unpromising play. He always likes to muddy things a little bit. But this knight here is quite poorly placed at the moment. And then there's always the threat of knight b5, threatening to capture the pawn on a7. So that's why he played c6.
All right. Well,
Oh, Mike, they didn't play your move.
they didn't play Mike's move.
That's usually a good thing.
Maybe they'll play some of Wesley's moves. We're going to throw it back to Tanya and Maurice and let them analyze some moves. But stay tuned. We might be catching up with Wesley So a little bit more as the game rolls on and the positions get a little more critical. Back to you.
Yeah, I never thought this.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Wesley, for those insights on the starting moves that we saw, trying to make sense of what was going on in Magnus's mind and Fabi's mind. But right now, I'm trying to make sense of this position. And the one thing that stands out to me, that it really comes down to that moment. It felt that Magnus had Fabi on the ropes after move 5, Maurice. And Fabi was going to be in big trouble, with the bishop and the queen lined up and Magnus looking confident. But look at the clocks as well now. Well, still a 5-minute lead, but Magnus has been burning the clock. And I think it all comes down to that curveball that Fabi threw with that move g5. And it's just been absolute chaos since then.
Yes, and it continues to be chaotic because now the move bishop to e4 has been played, and I see a bishop on e4, and it looks like it's a punching bag for a potential d5 shot, and I don't see what's wrong with this move. If I can just play d5, what are you playing? What do you do? Why is your bishop on this square? Actually, why is your bishop on this square? It potentially could go to f5 and tickle this pawn, undermine the defender of the pawn, and that's a deeply strategic idea. Now that I think about it, all right, he wants to get the g file eventually for his rook against this king. So if you open up the file with this move, there is the problem sitting on the b7 square, and also the long-term issue of this rook getting this file. So that is a very profound point. And so bishop takes, as we see also the eval bar is saying, this is not great for black at all. And that's because of an open file directed straight at the king. But in this position, you would think there'd be some other move that could be played here. But that b7 pawn is a real pawn. It is a real pawn that may drop. I'm wondering if I defend it and you take on c8, I take back, and now you try to take this pawn on this square. Now this is hanging, but
You're going down a rabbit hole right now. None of this is happening because Fabi is still on the think. We might see this, Maurice. We might see this line. And I love that you pointed out the idea that Magnus has. But I have a question for you right now. You know, we see the dynamics that are in the position. It's been crazy from the start, right? Starting from move 1, putting pressure, trying to counter it, pawn sacrifice, counter pawn sacrifice. We've seen all of that pretty much. And where are we? We're on, what move number are we on? It's just, if you just tell me.
Looks like
Right now, after bishop to e4. We're on move number 11.
ridiculous.
And it feels like we've played through an entire game. We've seen it all. With the outcome that we have and knowing the styles of these two players, you know, the characteristics that they have where their strengths come out, who do you think is feeling more comfortable right now with the position?
Nobody's feeling comfortable. Forget that question. Nobody's feeling comfortable. They know this is a crisis moment in the game.
I'm going to say it. I think Magnus is. And I don't
you think
that
he feels comfortable?
I don't think it's, I think relatively. I'll tell you why. I don't think it's because, you know, he's always a favorite in any game or anything like that. But this last move, bishop e4, it just feels to me that he understands this position. It's just easier to play with white. You know, you pointed out these standard aspects that exist in white's position. The king comes to safety on the queen side after long castles. You want to get that light squared bishop off the board. And it feels that Fabi is the one who has to answer the harder questions right now.
Really?
I'm
sorry. I want to play the move d5.
F5. You pointed it out with your line.
Yeah. No, I understand. But I'm asking questions. Like you're talking about answering questions. If these pawns are solid,
I'm taking white.
Centers are centers, and the eval bar is saying it's equal.
I'm taking white.
You're saying you're taking white. That white will win the game.
No, I'm taking white as a position that's more comfortable to play with white.
But I think comfort is personal. Right? Yes. I think comfort is personal. So you might feel it's comfortable for you, and you might feel it's comfortable for Magnus. But Fabi's also a guy who likes crazy, weird, chaotic positions.
Doesn't he like things more under control?
No.
Isn't Fabi somebody who wants things to be more strategic? He's a universal player. You cannot be a world number 2 or a 2800 plus without that. But it just feels like the dynamics that exist here. Do you think Fabi's enjoying this?
Yes.
Okay.
Fabi wants imbalance.
We'll find out.
Remember I told you about that the Benoni that he loves to play. A Benoni. He's supposed to be like, what are you playing a Benoni? Everybody knows the Benoni.
Yeah.
That's bad. But what I'm saying is that Fabi will compromise his pawn structure. He will create pawn weaknesses in his position for dynamic play at the drop of a hat. And here, this is exactly what he has. And he's been playing those kind of moves pretty easily. What he doesn't want is some boring, straightforward, nothing position.
You don't get that in freestyle chess.
which Magnus may try to do, may try to just tamp down everything in the position. What Magnus wants, and he's trying to time this out, is Magnus will get his king on b1. Then he can just free flow the rest of the game because his king is not compromised anymore. He doesn't have anything to calculate. Fabi wants Magnus to calculate. And Magnus is saying, no, let's keep this simple. Let's get rid of your good piece, or that important bishop, and let's see what happens. But this pawn mass is a real pawn mass. Can it move forward easily? It's not so easy to play the move e4 eventually without protecting that square. You can't play the move d4 because the knight can go to this square. So there's some issues around that Fabi has to deal with. That's probably the thing he's thinking about. How do my pawns just flow?
I don't know. I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at the clock. He doesn't look absolutely comfortable with everything that's going on.
I don't think you should ever be comfortable when you're playing a chess game. I mean, absolutely comfortable. Take up another game if you want absolute comfort. We're not sitting we may be sitting on a yacht, but it's not like you're in the jacuzzi somewhere relaxing, sipping some champagne.
Everyone might need that after this game.
Yeah, no, this is not what's happening for these players. It is a war.
Yes.
It's a war. This was just a war. I'm not looking for comfort. I'm not looking for easy resolution. This is still a war. And remember, this is the same guy who played G5.
I hear you.
The same guy who played G5.
Your boy.
It's not about him being my boy.
I will still say that I do like white here. And it just feels easier to play with white. Black's the one that needs to counter it. You have to you said it yourself, right? It's all about timing. You allow Magnus one move to get the king to safety. And then things get really tricky for black because every pawn move will be a difficult decision. By the way, he doesn't go for the idea that you had suggested. He first gives a check, so making sure that Magnus doesn't easily bring his king to safety. And these are difficult decisions to take. I don't believe, I'm not sure. Do you just get yourself into a self-pin? I would be very hesitant to make the move rook to f2. It's something that I won't, that's not a happy move. But is king d2 then the only option left? And that makes me feel that from a practical decision, Maurice, regardless of what the evaluation bar says, queen h4 was a good move.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what
has he gone king d2?
the main point was to the move, to be honest, because the queen seemed perfectly poised where it was.
You don't allow castle, but there will be still artificial castling, right? One move and you go king c1.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure what the point was. To me, strategically, this position was about the rest of the pieces and getting the center where it needs to be.
I'm going to say it. I call
that's where it needs to go.
It's a difficult position for black. And already our evaluation bar after queen h4, which is such a natural move. Sure, maybe the engine doesn't recommend it, but how many of us will play queen h4 in this position?
I don't think queen h4, to me, queen h4 is not a natural move.
Oh, wow.
It's just not, it doesn't do anything. Actually, queen h4 doesn't do anything. You could have also, as you said, you could have played rook f2, right? You could have played rook f2.
Self-pinning? Not sure.
Yeah, self-pinning, queen is defending the rook. You could also play king d2 like he did. You caused the king to move, but it wanted to. Remember the only thing I said about this position? This king wants to be on b1.
It's coming there. And by the way,
that's what it wants, right?
Fabi has made a decision. He gave a check. He put that king on an awkward square, but not for too long. And then he retreats with his own queen to e7. Okay. I think d5 is definitely in the air. What Fabi did not like, to try to understand why he didn't play another very natural move that you were looking at, was simply, well, now the evaluation bar is pointing out the best move in the position from Magnus. Will he make it? We will find out. But I think he did not like the offer of the trade of the light squared bishop, which, yes, the engines will say that, you know, you got compensation, give up the b7 pawn. But as a human, it's a very hard decision to take.
And Magnus has taken it because he's not human.
Has he got? It's on the board.
Move bishop f5.
Chess is from another planet sometimes.
Again, and it's a fantastic move. The move queen h4 was not on my radar. I saw it was over there. It was fluff. You know what we say in chess? Monkey see check, monkey do check. I'm not calling Fabi any names, but I'm going to tell you straight up. This move was not a check. This is what I tell my students. I was like, listen, just because you have a check, you don't have to cash it right away. And unless you have a concrete, profound reason, he must have thought something in his mind, the discomfort of the king, the self-pin, that made him want to play this particular move. And he's acting like nothing's going on because he just responded instantly with the move knight to c5. But now the engine is starting to feel itself and say we can disrupt that as well.
And Magnus Carlsen has only one move. You're pointing out the move, but Maurice, it's the only move in the position that gives him an advantage. So it's a very critical moment for Magnus. He needs to find this one to keep the momentum in his favor. I also want to bring us to a little psychological aspect of what we've been seeing being played out, right? Fabi played g5 in a moment of desperation. He doesn't know how good or bad the move is. You know, we had the evaluation bar guiding us, telling us that it works out. He managed to equalize at some point. But in Fabi's head, he had already made a mistake on the previous move. He had allowed Magnus to set up. Let me just finish on this. And then you're trying to come back from that point. You're trying to come back, find your play from that point. And that's not an easy thing to do, because when you go wrong on move 5, to adjust and adapt to that, right now, Fabi doesn't know the evaluation bar. He doesn't know what the position is. And he might be thinking that, have I already gone so wrong that there might not be a point of return? And making a move like queen h4, queen e7, you're on the defense then from a very early part of the game. And that's not an easy situation to be in. Well,
there's some speculation in that analysis that you just said, because it's not clear to me that Fabi thought his position was just dead after move 5.
Not dead.
We thought it was really bad. We thought it was, I'm going to tell you, I thought he was in deep
it was
trouble.
A big moment. It was definitely a moment.
Use a PG word. But that was not a good thing. But at some point we did see him relax. We did see the heart rate go down. We saw that he felt like he got compensation after his g5 move, and we could see that Magnus was not as clear in the position. Fabi looked like he relaxed. And I think that may be an issue that has happened.
So what do you
that
think
maybe he relaxed,
right now?
maybe he relaxed too much. Maybe he felt like, yeah, I got comp. I'm not in the same kind of danger I was anymore. I could see compensation here. And then he just made one little too relaxed move. The move queen h4 really falls in that category to me, queen h4 check, because strategically, you wanted to do other things. The move d5 calls itself to mind immediately as a move. It seemed like he had what he needed. And right now, maybe he still thinks he's just perfectly fine. The b7 pawn
Do you
is
think he
protected.
does?
I'm saying maybe he does, but to me, I'm surprised that he took this
How
route.
does Magnus just do this every time? It's the only move to keep an advantage, and he finds it, barely burning the clock. And once again, you know, Maurice, how many of us would just make a hand move like king to c1? Get that king back. You wanted to get to safety. You wanted to get a castle, but not Magnus. He recognizes a critical moment when he sees one. He knows he can't give Fabi the time to play d5 next now that the b pawn is defended, and immediately jumps in to trade that key defender that Fabi's managed to get on the board. Knight e4 by Magnus.
It's an impressive move, but it was a necessary one because d5 is the next move. Like, this is all-star prophylaxis, Karpovian, Petrosian type chess. You don't want players to just play moves that they want to play, and d5 was coming on the board. And if d5 happens, then, you know, that changes the nature of this position dramatically. So this move challenges that. That move says, okay, you want to play d5, it ain't gonna be so easy, buddy. You know, let's get rid of a good piece. And the most important thing about the d5 move not happening is this bishop on h8. Like, this bishop was thinking about his potential to breathe along the long diagonal at some point. And so you want to be able to play d5. There's no question about that. And Fabi has now played the move knight to e6. And he, again, I don't know how desperate he is in this position or his sense of desperation, because he has now managed to maneuver his knight. We talked about this maneuver before. He's now managed to maneuver his knight with the eye on the d4 square. And if he gets to d4, then he does challenge the bishop on f5 directly. And he will have shots like d5 against this knight. He is making sure that this bishop finds its life. It's the imbalance in the position. As Jeremy said, the late, great Jeremy Silman would talk about, great teacher, great books he's written, talk about the imbalances. An imbalance for black is this piece that white does not have. If this piece gets unleashed on the position, it could be a real problem for white. So white is going to always seek to control the board so that this piece doesn't have life. Naturally, if you had taken on the square, let me go back. If this knight had taken on this square, you could easily find yourself burying this bishop. But let's say, for example, a move like pawn takes could be played, right? Now this bishop, what kind of life are you ever going to have? It just looks like an ugly piece. You'll have to reroute. You kind of stuck your bishop on that square. So backing up, Fabi says, no, my friend. I want to keep the fluidity of the structure. I want to keep the threat of d5. I want to be able to play knight d4. This position, he doesn't know if he's worse, if he's desperate. All he knows is he's keeping the flow in the game. And that's really what he should be thinking about. Not, am I losing? Am I winning? And all that. Play each move. Tell my students, the move in front of you. That's all you can think about.
Now that that knight from a6 has arrived to the center of the board, is Magnus the one who's feeling a bit of pressure? Because yes, you can grab another pawn, but then you give a lot of open files to your opponent to get to the counterattack. Right now, Fabi has a direct threat, and Magnus, he's a bit shifty. He's trying to work it all out, and not easy because it's so much about momentum and time. It's not the kind of position that you can make slow moves in. So Magnus this time with some questions to answer, and he does take a big decision. He says, I'm not allowing that knight anywhere further into the game, and trades. And you know, I'm going to be honest, I thought we were on a yacht. This is going to be a really fun, chill game that the two are going to play out. And
Good luck with that.
None of that happened. I mean, this is not an everyday office space, and this is not an everyday kind of chess that we're seeing or a position that we're seeing. So now Fabi with a decision. Does he take with the queen or the pawn? He's already made it. He says, I'm going to keep my structure intact. I want that d pawn moving forward. I'm going to grab that with the queen, eyeing the a2 pawn. In some positions, eyeing the g pawn as well.
Taking with the pawn would have been a disaster position.
It's not what you want.
A disaster, because you take, and then this knight is just a beast. You can never get rid of it. Neither one of your bishops could possibly oppose such a piece. Your bishop on h8 has absolutely no prospects to get into the game. This is a gorgeous square. All you beginners out there, don't let outposts like this happen to you, because white will just sit back and laugh in such a position. But taking with the queen will allow you to challenge this outpost. d5 will be able to happen in due time. And so here, the taking with the queen is clearly the main decision to make. Now, I am surprised by the move bishop takes f5, but I get that Magnus did not want knight d4 to happen. So he's kind of simplifying, and we're seeing a lot of moves get played. Did we just see captures on B7? Looks like a double capture. I just want to make sure this is the right position, because it does look like takes, and takes was played. And if that is the case, then that whole demonstration by Fabi may not have led anywhere, because, well, there is potential compensation sitting here, but there's some stability. What has happened now is the position has simplified itself. It has dramatically simplified itself. All the chaos that Black could have had, Magnus has simply taken most of the poison out of Black's attack.
Well, it's 2 extra pawns right now for Magnus. It might just be 1 by the end of it, but a lot of trades have happened. Fabi, how will he counter it? That's the big question. And while he thinks we're in this amazing setting, this is something that's never been seen in the chess world before. We are playing a chess game, a freestyle chess game between the 2 strongest players on the planet, the world #1 and the world #2, on a yacht. And just earlier today, we had Danny Wrench with Holly Butner, one half the mastermind behind the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour, to talk to us. What are we doing here? What's going on? And everything that's to look forward to in the coming year.
Here we are with Holly Butner, co-founder of the Freestyle Chess movement. Holly, you look amazing.
Thank you.
This boat is amazing. How did we get here?
So it's actually kind of a long story. We wanted to showcase Singapore. We wanted to have different matches in sexy, more different locations than anyone has ever done before. So we thought first we're going to play the hand-in-hand match at the Sky Bar in the air. Then next we're going to play on water, so on a boat. And tomorrow we're going to be underground in a vault. So we've got all 4 elements since the games will be on fire.
Look at that. We have all 4 elements. The games will be on. That's a commentator move right there. She's a commentator in the making. So, all right, no, but seriously, this is incredible. You're pulling it off. Chess is being disrupted. I don't think anything cooler, sexier has ever been done for chess. And I want to have you walk me in here and show me a little bit about it. Is that okay?
No worries, we'll
All right,
do.
let's do it. Let's do it. So follow us here. This is the, what is this? This is the main captain room.
So usually this is actually the gym of the boat.
Okay.
One day I did with our wonderful PR girl, we were preparing here and we did yoga just to scope out the room. But now it's an actual chess room. So we've got the players sitting here, Magnus this side, Fabi the other side, and cameras all around to capture it and have an amazing stream, which you're going to comment, as well as do more interviews with all the involved parties. We're going to have a watch party downstairs again, involve some people, have some more opinions on the games, on the players, on everything. And the actual magic will be here. I'm so excited to see it, see who wins and see how they do. And especially which position it's going to be.
Yep. Amazing. Holly, you're a master breakdown right there. You just laid out this show, you laid out this event. This is incredible. And all right, we're going to catch up with you a little bit later as well. Get you and Jan's thoughts on the game, and thank you.
The freestyle chess match between Carlsen and Caruana sees these 2 stars going head-to-head in 2 classical games of freestyle chess, also known as Chess 960 or Fisher Random. Both games will be played at a time control of 60 minutes with a 30-second increment. From the 960 possible starting positions, 2 will be randomly selected for the competitors, 1 for each game. If the score is tied after both games, the match will go to 2 rapid tiebreak games. 2 fresh positions will be played with a time control of 10 minutes with a 10-second increment. If the match is still tied, we will see the most exciting format in chess, Armageddon. White will get more time on the clock, but must win, as Black will win the match in the event of a draw. White will start with 5 minutes, while each player will submit a bid with the amount of time they are willing to play with to get Black and draw odds.
And Fabiano Caruana is still having a think, and we're having an awesome time here on a boat watching these 2 greats in action. And what a position we have, and what a start we've had to this match, Maurice. You know, we had this incredible position and Magnus going at it, Fabi with that counter blow of G5, and right now it's still absolute madness on the board, I want to say. Despite having those 2 extra pawns, it's clear that Fabi's rooks, they're chasing the queens down. It's a game for all three results, with draw being the least likely.
I would agree with that. Remember, we saw that number of draws, 157 wins for white, 120 plus for black, and only 11 draws that were played on chess.com's site in this exact position. And we're seeing that kind of style happen here. It was 125. Here, there goes the number. That is the kind of thing that happens often in freestyle, and it's just not a distribution that you normally see in 518. Because 518 has been played so much and worked out, any position, by the way, would end up as played out as 518 is right now. Not belittling our treasured game of chess, but if you play it enough and people get to study it deeply, and now with engines, then you get familiar with all the opening ideas, and then that one becomes dry. Even this one would become dry if you gave people enough time to play it and study it over 300 plus years. So yes, we're not belittling any particular position itself. But this one here is definitely a wild one. We see that white is up 2 pawns. If you just count just the numbers, and okay, no problem. But the position remains very imbalanced. It's a dynamic, wild position. The structure is not a usual one. It's particularly black structure. And black does have the preponderance in the center. I keep talking about this move D5 that black someday wants to play. And this bishop will have to be unleashed somehow. And now that the king is sitting on this side, maybe that was the point that Fabi had thought about earlier, that let me push the king over near the queen side, because someday I'm going to start having target practice over near that king. And he will have that opportunity, putting a rook on the b8 square, maybe hitting the b2 pawn. There is the possibility of something, as we look at that could land on the board at some point.
And Magnus grabbed the b7 pawn. The idea of d5 is so tempting, but I just want to point out a quick tactic why Fabi did not go for it at this particular moment, because d5 runs into a devastating move right now. You know, you think you're kicking the knight out, but then suddenly, boom, queen takes pawn out of nowhere, other side of the board. You've got to take that queen, and the knight jumps in with the fork, and you know what? You regain the queen with interest in this position, because you're forking the 2 rooks at the end. So d5 at that moment wasn't possible, but I believe, Maurice, we've got some more moves, because Fabi, down 2 pawns, you can't play slow chess. You have to keep putting pressure on your opponents. And I know, and if we can get everyone updated, because we had rook to b8, hitting that white queen first. Just have that. This was played and Magnus sidestepped. So still keeping that queen takes pawn threat alive, not allowing d5 indirectly with this last move. And this is what we've got on the board. It's Fabi to play. And I asked you this question a while ago, and I'm going to ask this question again. Magnus up 2 pawns. Yes, you see the initiative, the b files open, the queen on e6 nicely placed. But with d5 not in the game right now, with the bishop on h8 still not open, do you think Fabi feels that he's got enough comp for the 2 pawns?
I think it's unclear to him. I think it's just unclear. I know it's unclear to me, but I think it's a hard thing when you're in the middle of a game to start evaluating whether or not you have something. Like, you do need to, but the question of, do I have enough compensation? What I want to do is just get some comp, right? Like, prove the position, because I'm down 2 pawns. So if I'm down 2 pawns, I better find some compensation of some kind, right? So I can't think about whether or not I have it. I just got to start cooking, because I'm not going to try to maybe make a draw. If I had a forced perpet, maybe, I'm sitting there, do I have enough comp? Nah, I'm bailing. I'll just perpet because I don't think I have the comp. But here, he just needs to get play. However he's going to get it, he needs to prove it somehow. What does he do here? Can he take this pawn sitting on this square and deal with potential moves like knight to c5? Will he be able to take on a2? That's going to be its own threat as well. Also, not clear on when this move might happen in a knight f6 with a rook on g1. I'm just seeing some potential possibilities. Will white try to trade off the queens with the move queen to d6 if we can get rid of a pair of queens?
That's a big idea that white has.
And if we do that, then we are up material. The knight can park itself permanently on this f5 square. Just permanent residence on that square. And then guess what? Somebody's got to pass a pawn that you'll have to consider. So Fabi has just snapped something off the board, and that is the pawn on b2. He has taken the pawn. The engine hates the move. absolutely feels this move, again, greed sometimes in chess will kill you. I didn't see a refutation to this idea, but it absolutely despises grabbing a pawn. And, you know, that's a funny thing, again, about materialism in chess. When you are, and Magnus has instantly understood why this was a bad move. And he's played rook to b1, the response in the position. Now we're seeing something happen. That king side is porous. And if you start shifting your pieces, remember what I said about capturing stuff? When you capture something, it takes time to go capture it. If you go take the pawn, for example, on a2, you're destabilizing your forces. And here, a move like this one, for example, could easily allow this to happen. Queen takes on d7, and you're busted. The knight is permanent, like we were talking about before. This kind of piece should never exist. The bishop is terrible. This king is fully exposed. This king has no care, by the way, about your queen being nearby. You might get one check off or a couple, but that's going to be it. White will be able to get away. For example, this check, belief, can be met by this move, and then the king will go the other way, and the king is going to end up here, and nobody's getting rid of this piece. Nobody on the board. So grabbing the pawn at this moment, capturing in a moment when your pieces aren't properly organized, was not the move to play. But he started thinking the way you did, and it's very interesting. Tigran Petrosian, from years and years ago, said, whenever somebody sacrifices, they often play like they lost something. Sometimes that's what happens to you. And I think that's what happened to Fabi. He's down the 2 pawns, but the
I
agent
just think it's a very difficult position for a human to play out. And I think rook takes pawn, coming back to that point, is again a very natural approach. Yes, it's not a correct move, but trying to understand why it's not a correct move, you know, when you're sitting on the board and you're playing the position out, a position where the most natural looking moves are the ones which make the evaluation bar shift is when you realize how difficult a position it is, even for the greatest, some of the greatest players in the world to play out. So I don't think you can be so critical about this rook takes pawn, because down 2 pawns, you know, you see d5 isn't coming here, which is the move that everyone wants to make. You see some problems with queen takes pawn, perhaps the b3 pawn move forward, d7 is hanging. What do you do here? You see queen d6 coming. These are some really difficult questions to answer, Maurice.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's why these guys get paid the big bucks. And Magnus understood it instantly. When rook takes b2 happened, Magnus didn't go, oh my goodness, I'm so surprised by that move. Magnus instantly played the move rook to b1. And I think he knew right away that grabbing this pawn right now was a bad idea. And now we've seen the line play itself out. Takes. And after queen takes d7, it will be clear for all to see that this position is terrible.
That bishop on a6.
Like terrible. And it's a back to that bishop. That's the piece.
Moved.
That's the piece we've been just talking about for so long. It's the one imbalance. We go back to Jeremy Silman. That one imbalance in the position that Black had been suffering for so long, and he never resolved it. And now he's going down. This game is lost.
That's bold, but I see where it's coming from. I mean, you pick up this bishop and put it on this diagonal, and you're talking about a completely different game. Look at the difference between the 2 minors here. White's knight on e4, just dominating the board, not allowing that e-pawn to move forward. Right now, the best move for Fabi would be to pick up this pawn and chuck it out of the board, but that's illegal to do. And this bishop, it's just trapped. No way to get to that white king. Magnus has picked up that 1 extra pawn, and some moves have come in. I think Fabi did respond. We're just going to get that on the screen after queen takes pawn. This is our position. So Fabi's in the thing, but it might just be too late for damage control. The only piece playing is queen to b2. Show us again, after queen b4, how are you hiding with the checks? Because I don't really see another move for Black.
It doesn't help. I just play c3. You
and
play a check. I just go back.
You hide on the other side of the board.
I'm gone. This bishop is not a piece. You're going to be in 2 moves down a piece. You're going to be down. This is what you have to look at it. You're down a piece. Yes, it exists in space physically, but it's not doing anything. And a piece that's not doing anything doesn't really exist. You only can give value to a piece based on its activity, based on its influence on the board. That bishop is nothing. It is nullified, and that knight on e4 looks like an octopus sitting on that e4 square. And by the way, you're the one down a pawn. It's not like I have the knight and I'm down a pawn. I'm going to have compensation. You're the one down the pawn.
You're down a pawn, and your opponent's the one with all the initiative. The bishop and the rook have actually boxed up its own king. One check with the knight on h6 would be checkmate. Luckily, the knight's too far away. By the way, we are seeing this line being played out. Because really, Fabi, queen is the only piece. But it feels like you're just delaying the inevitable. But I want to follow through because after queen c1 check, you know, your king comes out. There is one more check on the board. You can go to e3, checking that king. I don't believe Magnus would want to repeat then.
There's no repetition.
You go king g2, and then you're losing a pawn. Let's have that on the board, Maurice, because we might be seeing that. And also, I don't see an alternative here.
And it's busted. I mean, it's just, this is toast. After this check, the king moves, you take this one, we play rook f2, and now we start staring at your position and saying, what exactly are you doing? Like, you got your pawn back.
Yes.
Right?
But let's just play the line out till the end because, you know, as long as we see counterplay, we should follow the rabbit hole, right? So the f-pawn can still move forward. I want to give more forceful checks.
You
The
got it,
thing is,
yeah.
otherwise it's just busted. Like you said, it's lost for black. Black needs to continue doing this. Fabi
Yes.
is thinking. And where are you hiding with your king?
I want to go up the board. I'm just trying to make sure that queen e3, queen f4 doesn't happen as fast as my queen check. Let's see it. Let's try it. And so queen here. This is not a threat per se, but it is.
No, but you've got queen e6, queen e5 coming with a check, right?
Yeah. Well, no. Actually, the real question is after this move, right? Because now we don't get to play queen e5, and I wanted to play knight g5, except you have the queen now guarding that square. So the question is, what is the blow? Knight d6. Oh, I'm guarding h6. Okay, so I can play this move. I thought for some reason that I had to respond to this, but this square is guarded, so there are no more checks. So you're just going to drop the rook now, the exchange, and that's going to be all she wrote. And this is the position running
And
out.
I think this is the position that's running in their minds as well right now. You know, they're trying to work this out because if we look at the live board, that's the bottom right on our screen, Fabi's pieces are struggling to find play. You know, you were already looking for, again, desperate ideas in this position. Should I push the f-pawn? Can that create some kind of a mess? Do I go in for these checks? He's trying to calculate this line, but it looks like the only person having fun at the end of it is Magnus Carlsen.
May I say, if we go way, way back, and then we go way, way back, and we go way, I mean, we're going a long way back. That, by the way, capturing on that square, that right here is where the trouble all started. Right? That d5 move that was screaming to be played, it's a move you wish you had played, because as we play it out, the way the game actually went, and then Magnus said d5 is not going to happen, and then he decided to go for this idea, and then he traded, and again, we should be thinking somehow of playing the move d5, but maybe here another move could have been played, like bring your bishop out to stop this tactic.
Fabi is not happy.
But as we play the position out, he now plays this idea, which Magnus fully well understood was going to lead nowhere. And now the d5 move never got played, and the knight on e4 became the absolute beast of the board. And now, as we play it out, it's just, yeah, you can keep checking me. Are we here?
No,
Did they
we're
get
not.
here?
It's still at king e1, and you can tell, you know, you look at Fabi on the screen. Yes, he's calculated this all the way through, but he sees no light at the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel. You know, you can give these checks all around, but in the end, it's still Magnus Carlsen's party because it's the black king that's feeling unsafe with the queen and the knight combining against that piece on g8. You know, the bishop out of the game, the rook out of the game. The queen
It's that
is not going to be enough.
It's the knight. This knight on e4. And like, how many times has this happened to you? A knight on e4 and your bishop stuck because of this knight. The knight is unassailable. You don't want anything like this near your position. The knight should never have had this kind of superpower. And Fabi had a chance to chase it away earlier to at least get a control of that square. He didn't. And now he's created a stable disadvantage in his camp. His bishop is not a piece. The difference between the two minors is everything here.
Yes.
It's just everything. And there is no kind of way to chase this knight away. This knight is worth like a rook. Maybe it's even better than a rook, to be honest. This knight is just such a monster. We saw the tactics you mentioned with the queen sacrifice, that beautiful queen sacrifice. This knight is just an animal, and there's nothing to do about it. Black's busted.
Yeah, it's the absolute crown jewel in White's position. And the problem piece for black has finally made its first move in the game. Fabi puts that bishop to g7, but still what really is the future, what Fabi is dreaming of is to go f3 and to go bishop h6. We can just show that with the arrows to show the idea of how you want to actually activate. But does that even get you anywhere? There will always be g5. It's 2 moves away right now. And Magnus thinking how to make the most of it. Fabi is under 20 minutes on the clock. And you know, there are so many. You can give a check on e6. You could stop the idea of f3. There isn't just one path for Magnus. I think he reached out for the queen. He's about to give a check and force that king to a less desirable square. Not to point out, take away that h6 square. This bishop, it tries to come into the game, but a bit too late.
Queen, yeah, that check.
He hasn't played it yet. Reaching out for the queen.
Usually somebody reaches and pulls their hand back. You like that. You want to see that happen because it shows uncertainty. But it didn't take too long in the end, and he did play this check. And now you have to move your king.
Because of the idea you said earlier, if you block the check with the rook, you pin your rook to the king, and the white knight can jump in, double down on that pin, and win the rook. So with no rook f7 available, Fabi, he slows down. You know, it's not just this move that Fabi is thinking about. It's the whole position. And just how dire things are for black right now. You've got this active-looking queen, but there's nothing to be done. There's no supporting cost to that role.
That queen is nothing. This knight, it's such a beast. The reason you like to centralize your pieces and then have a stable piece like this knight is because not only can it go to g5 at some point with the beautiful sacrifice you mentioned earlier, not only can it go to d6, aggressive moves. It also plays defense. It's guarding home squares as well, even guarding d2. It even guards a rook when the rook lands on f2 in some lines. The knight is just way too strong. We call this an octopus knight. It's just reaching out with its tentacles in all different directions, and there's nothing to do about it. You would love if you could sack a rook for this piece. That, first of all, ain't never going to happen in this position. Never going to happen in this position. No. And second of all, you'd still be busted because your bishop is such a weak piece here. So this is just terrible as a position. King h8 played. The only thing that Fabi can hope is Magnus doesn't find the best moves, and it turns out I am stunned.
Really
I am stunned by this blue arrow that showed up on the board, that the only move now is actually rook to f3, that there's no other move. But let's just please note, if king to f2, there is this idea that Fabi has concocted, and suddenly he has great counterplay with his queen hitting here, his rook suddenly come alive. So this move is a problem. f3 is a problem and must not be allowed. And now
it's essential for Magnus to play rook to f3.
Rook to f3 is a baller move.
It's a massive threat that Fabi has. Everything else loses the advantage for Magnus.
What a moment. What a moment. If Magnus finds this, this is him reeling in the fish as we sit on this yacht. But
it's such a Magnus move to make. He's going to find it. It also comes with the idea of lining up the rook on the H line with some checkmating threats. And he's reaching out rook f3 on the board.
It's Magnus. I mean, come on. He's going to see these kinds of prophylactic moves and make sure that your threats go nowhere. It's an excellent move. We see the exclamation mark, the evaluation. That's the move that keeps the advantage. You know, it's funny in chess. A lot of players think when they have an edge, it means they have an edge and they can just kind of coast. Oh, I have a great position. I can coast. No, chess is cruel sometimes. You have your edge, but you have to sometimes make the only move to keep that edge, right? The only move. And in this case, rook f3 was one of those moves. If you miss this moment, that's it. Your edge is gone. But Magnus is not the type to miss kind of moves like this.
And rook f3, an essential move. But one can explain it as well, right? Your queen is beautifully placed. That knight you never get rid of. You ask what your opponent wants. There's only one threat on the board. You stop it, and that's pretty much it. And of course, Magnus takes barely any time to figure all of that out. And now the ball is in Fabi's court, but there isn't a shot to be hit because what is your next move here right now? You know, with white wanting to transfer that rook, yes, you can give a couple of checks. Actually, I do see an idea that might create a threat. Is there any meat in giving a check on the first rank and then transferring the queen to the king side to target that H pawn that's a bit tender?
The problem you pointed out earlier, is the rook. Oh, hold on, an f3.
And I want to go f3. I'm hoping that you move.
Well, that's a
Maybe
freebie.
we can
That's
just
a
show
free
that
pawn,
really
right?
quickly. Maurice?
All right, you play this check. The king goes up. You play queen here. And now my first instinct, let's just go
have
with
it on
it,
the
is
board.
rook h3. But f3 now, can I just take it? Like, what did you do?
Well, I opened up some lines. By the way, I think we're going to see this because Fabi has just played a check. The thing is, the position's desperate right now.
Yeah.
You need to do this. You need to find your counterplay. Maybe it leads nowhere, but the position still looks, well, it looks if black can just somehow get one move. Do I have one move or am I getting checkmated is the big question. And that might be the problem. Because if I get rook b8, rook b2, I'm back in the game. But the thing is, after rook to b8, is there a direct checkmate with rook takes pawn, Maurice?
I don't see direct mate.
All right, then I would want to try this move if
right,
I'm
let's
not
throw the move on
walking
the
into a
board.
checkmate.
The question is, what your threat is actually check and queen e1 check.
Or queen g1, depending on where you move your king. By the way, queen h1 on the board. So
Yes,
we are going to see
we're
this
here.
being played out.
We're here. This move, your two checks are what they are.
You have to admit, it does look like you've created threats. You know, yes, I see your bar there, and it's screaming that white is winning, and there's something amazing in this position. But visually, it feels like black has created some threats, Maurice.
Well, created a big threat and sub-threat. It's a big deal that you have queen e1. And so...
Which is why Magnus is not rushing with rook h3. But he does play it, so
On the
he's
board.
found a way to safety here.
I still have not, and I feel weird that I haven't yet figured out how to actually refute this threat. Rook h7, check and check and check.
Okay, what... Maurice, is f3 going to happen? Will Fabi go
Yes.
all in, all chips in at this moment, and will he go f3?
Unless he spots this win right now, then I'm personally...
You spotted a win?
No, I don't see a... But rook b1. I'm looking at defensive
me.
defensive moves like queen back, but suddenly rook b1 lands on the board.
No,
so,
but then there's a check at the
oh,
end.
then there's a
Queen
check.
eight.
Okay, so then what do you play here?
All right, but first let's come to this position. Are we going to see f3?
I think we are going to see f3 because it's not completely evident to me, and I feel silly. It must be a puzzle rush tactic somewhere in here. But f3 takes is forced, and then rook here.
And you
'Cause
want to
you
go
have- 'cause
queen
you have
a2?
to
You
go-
know, that's not an easy move to spot, by the way.
No, I don't see anything else, which makes it easy to see if I don't see this move, if I don't see what else to do. But I feel like there's...
You know, perhaps the point is that the white king is even safe. No, it's really not safe anywhere. F3 played.
Yeah, I mean...
It's on the board.
I don't see what to do, so I don't know what the move is. So I'm still trying to figure out what the right way to get my knight back, followed
I
by
want to
knight
get their heart
e2.
rates in right now. I want to see what that looks like. How are the players feeling on the inside? Do you think Fabi's over 100 right now?
A weird situation. No, sorry.
He's
I'm he might think he has enough play. I'm looking at a very weird, I don't want to play this move because my knight is so beautiful where it is. I'm looking at this very weird move, knight to g3. And the engine says, yeah, you're still there. But my point, and he has captured, all this is going to happen.
We're going to see it. Let's just have that on our live board. Let's see what the players... By the way, rook b8.
I told you, it's all going to happen. I'm still struggling right now to figure out what the move is. Magnus, in all his greatness, has found a way to counter rook b2 that's not one of my moves. Both my moves, queen a2 and knight g3, are still engine approved. But what is the killer blow?
Maybe it doesn't exist, and you have to counter this rook b2 check. Fabi really putting everything into this game, fighting it out till the end. And yes, we see that it's still busted for him. But imagine you're playing white, right? You think you've got everything under control. You're the one who's dominating. You're in driver's seat. And then suddenly, your opponent has this idea where you have to counter a checkmate in two. And it's not really obvious how you do that. Because you're only looking at your own tactics. You're looking at rook takes pawn. You're looking at knight g5. But suddenly, none of that works.
Well, no quiet move is going to work.
No, there's a direct threat of checkmate with rook b1 and
check is checking queen e1. So let's play a stupid move. Like that's a really stupid move, right? So we get this check, and as you try to run up the board, Magnus will play g5.
Whoa. Okay, wait. Let's just have that.
The ingenuity of g5 is only now what
He wants to hide. He's going up with the king.
heck?
The whole point is, let me
move.
show you. After g5,
I got
rook b2.
I got
Maurice,
it.
This is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful, and the beautiful thing about it is it's not necessarily like it has a threat. I mean, you might argue g6 is a threat, but g6, h6. My point is, it's like it just deals with the problem.
It does. In a genius manner, because now black has got 2 checks, but the king has an escape route for each one of them.
Yes.
Queen g1, king h4, king h5, you hide. Queen e1, king g4, king f5, and you hide.
But you do realize that you're hiding.
Oh my goodness.
You're hiding on h5 with your king after 2 queen checks, right? Well, maybe we don't want you to go to maybe we don't want you to go as far as f5. We want you to go to h4. Okay, so let's play this check. Now watch this. What if I bring my rook back home? Your king is in front of your rook. Your king is blocking your rook, and g6 is no longer a move. So you've kind of given up on your threats. The problem is that maybe this move, knight d6, is what else, in fact. Although maybe you might have argued that we're up 2 pawns at the moment, and you're busted anyway. So if your attack doesn't work, you're the one who's going to end up losing this game. But it looks like knight d6, now that your attack is dead, you are dead. And I think this is the point. He's going to run out of steam. G5 is beautiful.
Queen g1 on the board, forcing Magnus's king on h4. It's about to hide. Magnus is on the brink of taking this one. You know, g5, absolutely brilliant.
And he played rook back to b8 as well.
Rook b8 to stop the checkmating ideas on the back rank. So that's been played. But it's probably not going to be enough anymore because white's king feeling absolutely safe. You don't get to see this every day. King on h4, just happy and comfortable there, you know, chilling on a boat right now. And also chilling on the boat right now is Magnus's girlfriend Ella, probably feeling really good about Magnus's chances. And Danny caught up with Ella to find out what she thinks about all that's going on right now on the yacht.
Hey everybody, we are now here with Ella Malone. Going to talk about this game between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano. Ella, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
What do you think is going through Magnus's brain right now? You know Magnus better than anybody. You saw him just leaning in there. Your thoughts?
My thoughts, I think he's quite confident. Is this a live position?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's looking confident. He's looking good. He's looking hot.
Yeah.
I think.
What do you think of the headphones?
I think it's adorable. I think the air conditioning is probably distracting him, so he needs to block out the sound. Or is he playing music?
No, I think it's just the air conditioning.
Just the air conditioning?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think, you know, right now he's probably feeling pretty good about his position.
Yeah. What makes you think that?
Well, I can't see his face, Danny.
But just the position?
Overall,
Yeah.
position, he's normally pretty comfortable even when it's like minus 0.5.
Yeah.
Even I think he's pretty comfortable in positions that like aren't favorable to him anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's looking good. I think he's gonna win this, as he normally does. If he doesn't, then you know that will be surprising. But I think the odds are in his favor.
When you were upstairs with him before the game, he was preparing the move f4, and then you and I just saw a graphic that f4 was the best move. So what was that like watching him get ready before the game started?
Well, I didn't see the position, so I was really lost from the beginning. But yeah, he said that he actually preferred to be black in this position. I didn't quite understand that, but it seems like it doesn't matter if he's white or black. He said something about the benefits of being black was that your king was automatically safe from the beginning.
Okay.
But so is his. So as a chess expert, I don't know.
That's actually great insight because none of us were in there. So we'll get his thoughts about it after the game, whether he wins. But all right, we've got him on camera now. It looks like a pretty focused, stoic Magnus. What do you think? Yeah, you like it? Feeling confident?
He's looking good.
All right, he's looking good. All right.
I have no doubts that he'll get this wrapped up.
Well, and just like that, there was a mistake made by Fabi,
mistake.
and he's...
Ha!
The blue arrow was the
There
engine's best move, and courtesy of Magnus Carlsen, we normally get a lot of best
sees
engine
it.
moves. He sees it. He already played it.
Oh, he already
actually.
played it.
Yeah. and this one is turning around quickly. So we might have you for the final moments. Maybe this is good luck. The game might be over here soon, as soon as you join.
But why is this?
Well, he's much better now. If after black trades,
Okay.
they're going to show this line. But here, white can trade and then win the d7 pawn.
Oh, I see.
Maurice is about to show this line, and then black's king is going to get in big trouble.
I see.
And if Fabi doesn't do that,
I'm not a chess player.
this is great. This is what chess needs. And the analysis is if you don't. Oh wait, Fabi did it. No, this is not good for Caruana.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have much more to say about this. honestly.
That's all you needed
I'm not
to
a
say.
chess player.
That's all you need to say. Well, Ellen Malone right here with the behind the scenes of prep, and that Magnus is looking confident, looking good. So we're gonna throw it back to you.
Good.
Looking very good.
But you guys see it too.
Back to you, Maurice and Tanya.
And there we go into the playing arena. Fabiano Caruana did resign on the next move of the position that we saw. Magnus with that lost brilliancy with g5. And we're going to tune into what the players are saying right now.
No, but okay. So this is like, you mean like, repeat like d5, take h7, this, and g6, I suppose this, rook g8, this, rook b1, takes e4, and then
c4.
I don't know if c4 is good.
I mean,
Just
ed3, 3 and
ed3,
yeah. King.
yeah, I mean c4. Okay, yeah, c4 is. And d and rook.
Yeah, but maybe rook d8, king c1.
Oh no, you also have e3, f3.
Or rook d8, f3 is also.
Yeah, rook d8. Yeah, maybe this is.
I don't know why I didn't further. I like saw. E4, rook b6.
e4, rook b6. Why?
Yeah. Oh wait, my bishop's still on h8, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
no,
not
no,
on
yeah.
Yeah, I somehow like didn't take this seriously, but maybe I should have.
Probably the best.
Yeah.
That's maybe 7.
No, at least up to rook b8. Huh?
Yeah, because now bishop g7, or maybe still queen c7, bishop.
No, but I thought the endgame is really good then. Queen d6 takes, rook b2, a4. This there I didn't see anything for you.
Okay.
Rook a8, rook a1, and bishop f8. I'm knight c4.
Still rook.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I don't believe in that at all. At d5.
I should have gone for it. It's like somehow my instinct told me that endgame wasn't.
No.
And open like. I thought maybe it's not a bad idea.
No, I thought it was very interesting. I didn't mind it, but yeah, I
Just also start with d5 maybe. I thought like g4 was good for me.
Oh, you mean start with d5 instead of g5?
No, g5 take d5.
Oh, takes d5. Yeah, but I mean, I go g4 regardless.
Oh, anyway. Okay, yeah.
Like fg takes.
Yeah, no, maybe e5 is correct.
Guys, before we go, I'm going to do a quick interview with you both. Is anyone here that's okay?
Reese, and then you do yours.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
Okay. Should we go downstairs?
Yes, that would be
Are you taking
awesome.
them both?
We're gonna have first Magnus and then Bobby. So if that's okay.
I'll be up here if it's okay.
Perfect. That's fine. Perfect. That's fine.
And what a fantastic game this was, start to finish. You know, we saw twice on the board appear to move g5, once by black and once by white. Both absolutely brilliant, and Magnus Carlsen takes the win at the end. And he is joining us right now in our studio. So we're going to get his insights into how he was feeling while we were witnessing all the chaos, Maurice.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it is poetic that G5 was that crazy move and then turned out to be the winning move, the beautiful idea at the end, because it's just a creative balance in chess. This fantastic find, knowing that the counterplay was possible, and he just shut it down with the move G5. So it just shows the kind of player he is and what kind of chess you can have when you play freestyle chess. It is simply magnificent, if I have to say that, about this game. What an original game. And joining me now is Magnus Carlsen. Magnus, congratulations, first of all, on the game. Your fresh thoughts about the positions from the very beginning. It looked as though you were doing very well after bishop e3, and then he just kind of exploded the position with g5. What were you feeling right at this moment?
No, yeah, as you said, I was feeling quite good after the opening. Sort of my initial reaction when I saw the position was that it's probably going to be hard to get anything significant from the opening here, since I thought they're, the kings are going to be quite safe, and we're likely to see some kind of symmetry. But yeah, G5 sort of blew everything open, and I obviously love to see it. I didn't know if it was good or bad. I was just thinking that it's going to be a fun game, and yeah, I felt good, and today I was up to the challenge.
Did you feel like you had to control things when he got the pawn on e5 and figure out how to tamp down his initiative? Because he looked like he was trying to expand in the middle. A move like d5 looked like it could happen at any time. You might have this big pawn mass. Were you concerned for your own safety or his compensation?
No, I wouldn't say I was concerned. I was trying to sort of fight fire with fire there, not backing down and trying to play actively. Like, long term, with the kind of pawn center he has, it's going to be quite bad for me. So I have to play actively. I have to play tactically. And, like short term, for instance, there are some problems. Like his bishop on h8 could be a fantastic piece, or it could be a bad piece, if it doesn't get into the game. And yeah, it was really fun position. I thought I was seeing the tactics quite well, and obviously there's always a chance in such a game that you've missed something and then you end up just losing without a fight. But I always believed in my calculation, and at the end getting to just, I don't know, I felt like at some part of me felt like I should think more, but I just thought the idea of playing g5 and then just walking the king up was so beautiful, and with my pieces placed as perfectly as they are, especially the knight and e4, I felt like things couldn't really go wrong.
Yeah, I was struggling to find a move right at that moment. I came up with queen a2, knight g3, looked good, and then you play g5. I was like, oh, okay, that gets the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the game just flowed. Like, I barely made like a waiting or passive move in the whole game. Like, everything was just super tactical, and honestly, like, this is what we play freestyle for. It's for games like this, when it's just free flowing and fun.
That was exactly the point I wanted to make, just backing up. You see an original position like you saw on the board. It's impossible in regular chess, 5-18 position, to play a move, and a move one, a pawn's hanging instantly. And maybe a piece is threatened. Like, you're taking a pawn and a piece right away, so crisis starts right away. Is that the kind of excitement you want to see? You're happy to see that freestyle provides that kind of instant imbalance that just normally never happens in our game?
Yeah, it's definitely fun, and you have these variations as well, like which I've actually seen before, not in that position, but in similar positions, where each queen goes knight hunting on the side, but usually you want to be on the white side of that because you have an extra tempo, and usually you get the better of that. But it's it's what we want. It's a fresh position from move one, and even though like my first impression was that this one may not be the most exciting one, it turned out to be a fun game, and I gotta say, like, I gotta give props to Fabi as well. Like, if he doesn't go G5, then this doesn't happen. Like he really put me to like a serious test, and the result was a really fun game.
I'd be remiss if I didn't at least get to a position in the game. I wanted to go a bit earlier. What was the critical moment, I guess, somewhere around here, that you felt the game changed? Like something like this. The engine loved...
First of all, I loved finding the idea of bishop e4. So otherwise he goes d5 at some point, and my bishop is sort of shut out. And this way I get it into the game. So around here I was kind of feeling that I was probably better, but it didn't seem clear at all. But it sort of felt like my moves were easier. Like I'm playing for tactics. Otherwise I'm just worse. So that kind of makes it easy for me to play. But I think what he did was very, very natural. But I
didn't like the move Queen H4, by the way. Did you feel like this was a natural move at the time?
I didn't. It surprised me at the time. Like Fabi explained after the game, that he was afraid I was going to castle kingside at some point, which makes a lot of sense. Because with a rook on d1, obviously, like moving the king to d2 and then to c1 or castling is like, it's the same, just a tempo more. So I can basically like castle at any time with the king on d2, and I generally felt that the king was better there. But he must have seen some lines concretely where the king goes to the king side, and he wanted to avoid that.
Did you feel that in the game when he played Queen H4 that it was not a great move, or you felt like it was irrelevant?
I felt that it was probably not a great move, but again, that was an intuitive feeling rather than based on any sort of deep calculation.
And when did you feel like, okay, that what you just did, son, I'm gonna have to punish you for it?
No, so if we go a few moves further, this was all quite natural. And this, takes. This was an interesting moment actually, because my original idea was to play the move c4 here. But this is actually quite bad, because he goes d5, cd5, and now specifically cd5, which you often like discard immediately, because you think you grab the queen and then knight c5, and then I realized that he just goes bishop c8 and I'm dead lost. Since if I take the pawns, he goes rook b8 and all of that, then he invades, and otherwise he just has two bishops and rolling pawns. So I had to sort of find something new there, but I didn't feel like the position was super critical. Like I felt like there should be something, and I love like the sheer sort of stupidity of just grabbing the pawn on b7. No, as I did in the game. Like it kind of feels absurd just to take this pawn, open the lines and everything. But what I'd seen is that we get this potential scenario of good knight versus bad bishop. Like once the pawn on d7 falls, then game is over, right?
Yes.
Even if he gets both my pawns on the queen side. So I felt like even though this kind of looks like madness, king in the center, grabbing all these pawns, even the knight on e4, right? It looks pretty. It's not stable because he can attack it at some point. I felt that it was always sort of justified tactically, and I was extremely happy to see the move rook takes b2 later on. Then I knew that I was winning.
Right here, he could have played bishop g7,
bishop
to
G7.
deal with the queen
I also
a7
thought about
tactic.
bishop f6 actually.
Even this.
Yeah, even this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just, I mean, engine says that white is better, but much better. But I'm 2 pawns up, but his pawns looked menacing, and it's not obvious that my king is safe. So I didn't think that this was too clear.
But when
So
he took the pawn, though, that
yeah, then everything, like, that's the sort of the line that I'd calculated, and now everything falls into place. Now it's now everything is, it's just, you know, just very, very simple.
you said you saw this coming. The rook b2 was
Yeah,
something.
rook b2. I knew that was a mistake, like because now I get to activate my pieces, and I get to his pawn on d7, and once that pawn falls, doesn't really, like, hardly doesn't even matter what kind of tactics and so on he might have. They're not going to work. And yeah, of course, rook f3 was important, but it was not very hard.
Well, not very hard for some people, but great find. Listen, fantastic game, great entertainment for sure. Last thought before we let you go. Tomorrow, you're up 1. Usually you play for a draw, like you shut things down.
That's the point. You cannot do this. Eh?
You can't do it in freestyle.
Yeah, and that's what's so fun about it. Like, even if you win as white, then as black, like, making a draw on demand is white. Like, it's much easier, but it's far from easy. And certainly tomorrow, I just gotta try and play a normal game, try and have fun like today, and you know, hopefully it's gonna go well. But yeah, it's a new day, it's a fresh position, and new chances.
My producer has asked me to ask you, fresh situation as well, playing on a yacht. What's that about? How did that feel, playing on it? It must be your first time, a competitive chess game on a yacht.
Yeah, I mean, when you're sitting at the board, doesn't really matter. But it was certainly a nice venue.
All right, well, thank you so much. We're going to let you go. We got an interview now with Mike Klein, with the yacht captain. Magnus, thank you so much. Great win. But stay for this interview as Mike talks to the captain of this yacht, this great venue that we'll play on again tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Mike Klein here on the yacht Silent World, and I'm here with the man of the yacht. That would be Captain Rado. He's in charge of everything. So we've got a couple questions for you. First of all, Captain, tell us about the yacht. How long is she?
The yacht is 40 meters long, 8 meters wide, and we had a draft of 2.2 meters. It's underwater. The boat was built in Spain in 2006, and since then she was cruising around the world, like everywhere, States, Australia, South Pacific, and now it's home port. Our home port is Hong Kong. We are Southeast Asia based, and summertime we spent in Hong Kong, and winter we are in Phuket, Singapore, Malaysia.
Some great places, but right now we are stuck in the marina because we don't want the boat moving too much with the players playing chess on board. Have you ever had a competitive match of any kind on board your boat?
Well, not on this boat. I mean, the size of this boat cannot accommodate big tournaments or big events like this. In the past, I worked on the cruise ships, and there we had some different, like, interesting activities. But this boat is more for like family oriented, and it's like for people enjoying the sea, the sun, beaches, and stuff like this. And it's very nice actually that we have this event, because it's something new, unusual, and interesting. And yeah.
It's a first for me too, and your crew has been amazing. Now let me tell you, in the chess world, if there's any problem in the match, there's an arbiter that helps decide things. But if they appeal, it has to go to somebody else, and you're the captain. As I understand in the boating world, whatever you say goes. So is there a chance you might have to like make a ruling on the chess match?
Well, no, I prefer to rule my world. And yeah, on the boat is like captain is like has a ultimate responsibility for everything what is going on board, especially regarding safety of all guests, boat crew, and well, I haven't played chess for very long.
I'm sure it won't come to that.
Yes, I used to play with my dad when he was alive, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy having this event on board, and it's something very unusual and very interesting for me.
Well, we wanted to make it so that the loser of the match got thrown overboard, but Captain Rado is not going to let us do that, probably for the better. Anyway, it was great talking with you, and let's see how the match unfolds today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, one eye on the radar, one eye on the chess.
Thank you, Mike. And it is a beautiful board, and it was Magnus Carlsen who cruised through victory in round one of the best of two against Fabiano Caruana. And what a game, what a fight it was, start to finish. Some great insights there in that interview, Maurice, by Magnus. First, I was surprised that he thought black was doing fine because we felt completely differently at the start of the game, that white's the one who's going to be putting the pressure. And that just shows how complex freestyle chess can be for even the GOAT. But what amazed me was the final sequence of moves that we had on the board. That was some insane calculation by the world number one. Maurice, take us through what happened.
Absolutely, and yes, I was shocked by that, but this finish, it shows levels on levels on levels, as Judith Polgar once told me, that the great ones, they just find the next level to play. You see here, Magnus understood. He said Rook F3 was easy. Rook F3 is easy. Yeah, if you're Magnus Carlsen and that type of player, Rook F3 is super easy to understand and play quickly. And also to understand, yeah, looks like your opponent's going to get counterplay. You're defending with Rook H3. It's another only move. Why are you playing all this defense? And then suddenly F3 is on the board. Weren't you playing Rook F3 to stop this move? You let your opponent do it, and suddenly they have counterplay. And I was finding mere mortal moves. Queen A2, yes, is better for white. Still winning. Knight G3 also still winning. But it ain't the move he played, which was G5. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? What is this? Well, what it is, it's giving the king a chance to run up the board, and your checks just run out. Sorry, you cashed them, and they're bouncing, actually, because now you got nothing. Whatever check you play, will be your last one. Queen here with check will be answered by king to H5, and that king is perfectly safe on that square. When we get back to white's attack, Fabi just desperately pulled his rook back, and the move we didn't get a chance to show was the move knight to d6. That was the bone cruncher. Who's attacking who? Well, it's clear what's happening here. The beautiful thing is that this pawn is actually also in the attack, because we got a smothered mate threat with this check, check, and queen sacrifice that we all know and love. And you can't make love because there's a pawn sitting waiting for you to make that happen. You're just going to get your clock cleaned in this position. Fabi realized what was going to happen, and he decided to resign right at this moment. A truly first-class performance by the number one player in the world.
Just amazing. G5, right? Out of nowhere to find an escape route for your king. And yes, you can give one more check if you're Fabiano Caruana here from F2. But the king is not just hiding on H4. It's hiding on H5. And you say you're coming in with that checkmate next. This would have just delayed the inevitable. Fabi threw in the towel. He resigns, which means in this best of two, Maurice, he has to win on demand going into their final classical game tomorrow. That puts the pressure on. And before we wrap up, I'm going to get your final thoughts. What was your big highlight today?
For me, it was the way Magnus insisted on controlling the game despite the chaos. The way to get at him is to keep the game crazy, to consistently keep it busy. Do not let it simplify into something that he can just play masterfully crafted moves and stop whatever you're planning to do. And Fabi did a great job with G5. It's a brilliant response, but he wasn't able to keep it up. He wasn't able to find those aggressive moves that would have kept the position sharp, that would have kept it full of possibilities. And when you don't do that the right way, Magnus makes you pay.
He does, and this is just the start, because we are in Singapore announcing the big tour, the big Grand Slam tour of freestyle chess coming our way in 2025 with 5 tournaments across 5 iconic cities all over the world. This is just the beginning, and what a fantastic one it's been. It will be the final round tomorrow, and we'll be playing from another amazing venue. We will be at Singapore's Freeport tomorrow with Magnus Carlsen, with Fabiano Caruana, and with all the drama that freestyle chess brings with it. We will see you then.